Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to the Tom Colohue, both YouTube and Twitch channels, where today we are going to be streaming NXT Takeover in your house. I don't need to briefly change my titles over on Twitch. That was a mistake on my part, not already doing this, but a lot of things happen at once. It's like a lot of things happen. Oh, we're already set. That's actually a lot more prepared than I was. What can I say? Welcome everyone. We are going to do a half-hour pre-show, so full 30 minutes before we then go into much later on the actual show in half an hour, which is expected to last about 2.5 hours at this point. I've been reaching out to as many people as I can, and I can say with certainty that right now, Samoa Joe is not backstage. I repeat, right now, Samoa Joe is not backstage. The pre-show is live on my TV as we speak. What we have is a view of the Capitol Wrestling Center, the set, which was posted on Twitter a little bit earlier. I got my pictures from Andrew Zarian, who is there in attendance. Sam Roberts is currently talking. He's a very bald man. And Justin Barrazo of Sports Illustrated, I believe, is there as well. We have journalists on camera. He's looking nervous. But this is essentially being hosted by two podcast hosts. Well, a journalist and a podcast host, I should say, at the moment. So it's a different world we live in. Bit of a different world. Not the world I was expecting from the off, I'll say that much. I'm going to be breaking down my predictions and my previews here. We will also soon be joined by our friend and moderator of the channel, Ed Fries, who will be going into a bit more detail on the goings on in NXT in general. As you know, I'm not the biggest follower of NXT, but I keep up to date with the storylines as best I can. And in half an hour, we have some pretty insane action coming our way. So the only thing we're really focused on right now is getting to that action as quickly as we can. They are hyping up their main event as we start the Fatal 5-Way, Karrion Kross defending against Kyle O'Reilly, Johnny Gargano, Pete Dunne, and Adam Cole. A large number of potential winners here that we have to be very, very aware of, because ultimately, most of tonight is going to have a lot going on, not just from the show that's actually happening, but also from shows in future, because there'll be call-ups. There will be call-ups, and we need to keep an eye on who's there and who isn't, because sooner or later, those call-ups are going to affect booking. If you've been following here on YouTube, you'll be aware that they've already affected booking, and I've been trying to share as much information about that as possible as we go. Jada was here already saying, hey, welcome, mate. Glad to see you. Dominic Prez is saying, pardon me, had a bit of a blip there, saying he misses the music. I know, mate, but this is a live video. I'm right here talking to you. Any information on Brock Lesnar? Not aware of Brock Lesnar having signed a new contract as of yet, but there is an ongoing negotiation with intention towards that. Now, that's actually been ongoing for a while now, but we are where we are with that one. Now, my intention here was to do sort of a lot of things at once, to go to quite a few different shows and keep an eye on Twitter with Ed here as well to provide me a little bit of backup. Of course, Ed isn't here just yet, so you've just got to deal with me. Bear with me one moment. Seems to be a slight issue. I need to reach out to him on. Bear with. And then we will be talking about our predictions, what we expect to see from the show, and of course, I will be keeping you up to date with anything I hear related to Samoa Joe. I don't want to be glued to my phone the whole time, is the issue, which is why it'll be hugely beneficial once we have Ed here to help support us. In the meantime, I need to get up the card and go through. I know there's only 5 matches, but I want to make sure that I don't miss anything. Half-arse it, what can I say? What can I say? Don't know half-arse it. Shows with Ed tend to be a little bit more podcast-based, as in just a bit more conversational. But I think that works for NXT, particularly takeovers, because ultimately we are not going to be all that focused on calling the action. We're not going to be doing play-by-play and color commentary. We're going to be doing the best we can to cover in depth. But ultimately, and just as I introduce our friend and our moderator, Ed Fries, we are going to be talking a lot more generally, because we're not going to be talking over promos or anything like that. So let me just, first and foremost, our colleague Ed Fries. Ed, how you doing, mate?
I'm good. Just shaved the head like I told you. Wanted to go for the Baldy Bros look that I always talk about. So
how dare you? Yes. You should be ashamed in every possible way for trying to pressure me into doing something.
I'm not pressuring you. I'm just showing you how wonderful it can look.
Yeah, I've got all this hair. Look at it. Look how much it is.
It's delightful.
It is indeed. Jadeb saying the first time online today, Samoa Joe rumors any weight to them. Can't say one way or the other. All I can say is that I've been reaching out to as many people as I can, and they have told me that Samoa Joe is not there at this time. I find it unlikely that he will be. I've not actually seen Samoa Joe rumors, just a whole lot of Samoa Joe speculation. Ed, do you think we'll see Samoa Joe tonight?
I highly doubt it. I feel like if we're going to see Samoa Joe, I think it's going to be something that they save for SummerSlam. I think that would be something that they would do when they know what the plans are for a draft that would be coming shortly after that pay-per-view. It'd be tough to bring Joe in now and get ready for a feud, not knowing who's going to be there.
Yeah. I think it would be sort of hilarious if Joe did return tonight, go to NXT, and then get drafted to SmackDown in the draft. I would just find that hilarious. Jadeb says, 2 hosts for the price of 1. You do have 2 hosts.
We
you
do.
have both of us trying to keep you as entertained as possible here. And Jadeb also says, I'd love for Roderick to make an appearance. We haven't seen Roderick Strong in a while. Where's he gone, Ed? Tell us.
So, Roderick Strong, a couple weeks ago, probably about a month or so ago now, at some point, handed in his resignation from NXT. He handed a package. He was with Marina Shafir, and he told Regal he was done. And he left, and Regal wished him well and told him he'd be welcome back if he wanted to. And we haven't seen him since. I assumed he'd be headed straight to SmackDown, because that's where I think Roderick Strong's going to fit in the best. He's not a Raw guy. He's definitely a SmackDown 6 kind of guy.
I can see where you're coming from with that. I think his athleticism and his smaller stature definitely would work better with SmackDown, with Nakamura, with Bryan, with Rollins. Reigns is really an all-rounder. He can work with pretty much everyone. But when you look at, for example, Bobby Lashley, I don't really feel he can work with everyone the same way. Even just looking at his brief feud with Finn Balor, it was a very limited feud, and they just did the best they could with that. If you are currently watching on YouTube, please do remember to click like on the video. That helps us grow, helps us find new subscribers, and it just helps me have a slightly bigger ego. They're currently making predictions between Sam Roberts and Justin Barrasso. Did you expect that we would see Justin Barrasso here tonight, used in this capacity before it was announced? Is this a surprise to you, Ed? You are muted. You're muted right now.
It is a surprise to me. I didn't see the announcement that Barrasso was going to be there. However, it doesn't surprise me that NXT brings in people that they use to, I don't want to say leak stories, they break stories. These are particular people who WWE trusts to break stories that WWE wants to be broken. Now, that's good journalism. I'm not going to sit here and say, it's a bad thing to be good at your job and have the company tell you what they want to have out there. That's a good thing. Because you know what? It gets Justin Barrasso hits on SI.com. It gets Justin Barrasso great stories in Sports Illustrated, the magazine. And more importantly, it means he's getting fed true, factual information that we can rely on. Because we know he's getting information from people we can trust because he's on their programming.
It's a very good comment, especially when you consider, I think Justin Barrasso is the only person for a long time who actually had an interview with Kevin Dunn.
True.
When the Thunderdome first happened, he was the one reporting on it, getting the interview and saying how record-breaking and how brave it all was. Yes, it read like he'd been told, this is what we want you to write. But ultimately, of sources in that regard. Sometimes, even if someone is being fed information, the important thing is to make sure that you're getting the right information, and it's at least worthwhile having people that we can definitely trust to deliver that. While there are, of course, plenty of other people who do get fed information, and the only thing that they really say about that is the case that, okay, well, I make this exclusive report or they say, I heard this from this person's camp. No, we know you're being fed the information. Either be honest about it or don't mention it. It could be so much simpler, but people do have this thing about the way they present themselves, don't they?
They do. But it's also nice, this isn't the first time, because this is now going to be the second time that we've seen somebody from outside WWE come in and be part of the WWE company, because Jimmy Smith has been doing things for NXT for at least a little while, and now he's on the Raw commentary table. So it's not the first time that Triple H has brought somebody in and was like, I like you, I like the way you sound, I like the way you talk, let's come in, let's do this. Heck, Sam Roberts is still there doing that.
Very true. He's there right now. You've got Sam Roberts, you've got Pete Rosenberg. In addition, you've had a number of other people. I know Denise Salcedo has been at a watch along. I think, was it...
Alex Queen of the Ring was on there.
That's the one. That's the one I was trying to think of her name. She's also been in one of those. And it really does lend credence and gather excitement from the crowd when you've got a situation whereby you know that you as a creator could be contacted to appear on one of these things. It would be hugely beneficial for someone. So I think it helps ensure that people go into it with an open mind, go into it with a fresh voice. It's a little bit of new excitement. I think it's a good way of doing things, personally.
And the best thing about stuff like this is that we're not seeing, Justin Barrasso reporting backstage rumors. We're not Justin Barrasso reports factual information given to him by the company. We're not seeing, when they bring in people like Denise Salcedo or bringing in Alex Queen of the Ring, they're not bringing them in for expertise. They're bringing them in for a fan perspective on what's being delivered on the screen in ring.
Yeah.
So it's not like Ryan Satin. Ryan Satin having the Satin sheet on Fox was a very interesting idea because he's obviously being force-fed information from the company, which is fine. Again, we just went over how important that is to have people who have direct links to viable sources that can be proven. We know he was getting information from as good a source as it's going to be. It may not be Vince McMahon, but he was getting WWE PR sources to tell him, we want you to report this. At the same time, he was still part of Pro Wrestling Chic.
Yes.
And that's where the divide happens with that, because he was still reporting rumor while also getting factual information from WWE. And I'm not sure how happy they were that Fox was like, we want you to do this and report these important stories that the company's giving us, and while you're still running your own company.
I certainly can only speculate as to how happy they may or may not have been, particularly when you consider that he was on Backstage, I believe the show was, with his Satin Sheet reports. And yes, I can say for certain that there were several wrestlers who said, I am never appearing on that show. Just on that basis, it was a very real situation that, as you might expect, caused quite a bit of friction. Conrad is here saying, hey, Tom and Ed. Welcome, Conrad. Glad to see you.
Hello, Conrad.
If you have anything to plug, by all means, shout out and say so. A predictions show, for example. Let us know your predictions. We are about to go into hours with just 15 minutes to go until the show starts. So, Ed, I'm going to start you off with a match. If you want to give us your prediction and why, I'll follow on from there. I want to start you with Xia Li versus Mercedes Martinez. Who have you got and why?
I have Xia Li. This return to having Xia Li and Tien Shaw on TV happened within the last couple weeks after being gone for a substantial amount of time. Triple H is really good about letting stories die and not letting them completely go away. Most of the time, he bides his time. He knows he has 2 hours a week to tell his stories, and if he has to build to something, some stories get put to the side, but normally always get picked back up. Mercedes Martinez, we've all heard the rumors that potentially she's involved in this Eva thing. On top of it, I don't see her going back to the women's title picture anytime soon. Meanwhile, Xia Li is an up-and-coming star who could really use a big win, and Mercedes Martinez is a big win for her.
I would definitely agree as to Xia Li winning. I believe that for slightly different reasons. I get what you're saying about Mercedes Martinez, but from where I'm sitting, I think it's very telling that she was a member of Retribution, rumor has it chose to go back to NXT, and since then she's been on the losing end of basically everything that she's done. Basically everything. So I completely agree with you there. Just to catch up with the chat, Conrad is asking why we're talking with Ryan Satin. We're not talking with Ryan Satin.
I wish we could talk with Ryan Satin. That'd be great.
This is Ed Fries rather than Ryan Satin. But the beauty of this situation, we were talking about Justin Barrasso and how journalists have started to connect a lot more with NXT. Maybe not WWE proper, but NXT certainly. Ryan Satin was an example used based on the discussion of how journalists present themselves and how the company presents them. Corey is here as well saying, hey Tom, hey Ed, having my own watch party as well, but decided to open a tab for you guys, and I very much appreciate that, Corey. Every view, every tab that's open, whether it's muted, whether you're on it, doesn't matter. You still count as a viewer. You still boost me up the rankings of people's follows, and you still help this channel grow. So I'm very grateful. Thank you very much, Corey. Conrad is predicting Karrion Kross to retain, Raquel Gonzalez to retain, MSK and Bronson Reed to retain, Xia Li and LA Knight. So the only actual title change will be the gain of the $1 Million Championship for LA Knight, from what Conrad is saying. We have agreed with Xia Li. We'll see if we agree with anything else a bit later. Jada was asking, would you rather be on the losing end of everything or not be on TV at all? For example, Mia Yim. When it comes to NXT, being on the losing end of everything is fine. When it comes to SmackDown, I would definitely rather be on TV. So I think Mercedes Martinez probably has it better than Mia Yim here. Would you agree with that, Ed?
Absolutely. If you're on TV, you're getting to wrestle. You're showing what you're capable of. And even if you're not getting the wins, I think people, right, especially now, take wins and losses way too seriously for everybody every time. Yeah. Just because somebody has a bad loss doesn't mean they're buried. Just because somebody loses for 2 or 3 weeks, 2 or 3 months, doesn't necessarily mean they're buried. There has to be an up and a down. You have, once you get up to the top, to let somebody else come up to that top, people have to come back down. Should they come back down to a mid-card? Maybe. But every now and then it's nice to filter them all the way down to the bottom, let them take a break, and then come back.
I completely agree. It should be cyclical. It shouldn't be a case of everyone on top at all times, because then you get bored of people. But if people are on the bottom at all times, why are you even in the company? That's the question I would have in that regard. It's better to have that change around, that constant switch. I'm going to ask you next about the $1 Million Championship ladder match, which will feature LA Knight against Cameron Grimes. Who do you have winning this one?
I have LA Knight. And the reason why I have LA Knight is because this whole feud has been built around Cameron Grimes, as I call him, the $100 man, chasing the $1 Million Man. Cameron Grimes is a countrified version of the $1 Million Man. And while he is the babyface now and been securely pushed as the babyface, I think this is a moment where LA Knight gets that big win that he needs because he hasn't had it yet. Gets that win, gets that title, and then you have Cameron Grimes chasing LA Knight, because this could be a really good feud for the next couple months over that beautiful, beautiful title.
I agree the feud's going to go for the next few months, but I disagree on the winner. Because this is a first match, I think Cameron Grimes will be taking it, likely with DiBiase in his corner. And then that sets up a few more odds for LA Knight to overcome. From where I'm sitting, Cameron Grimes would be the better heel, despite the fact that LA Knight is portrayed as a heel quite often. This looks to me like a heel versus heel feud from the outside, but I'm sure you'll correct me if I'm wrong on that. But LA Knight, for me, would be easier to cheer. So I would have him lose this one by nefarious means and then win the overall feud as time goes on.
Cameron Grimes typically is a great heel, but right now it feels like I don't think there's a way you could get people to cheer LA Knight over Cameron Grimes. Cameron Grimes is going to have what I would call the Full Sail crowd. It's not Full Sail, it's the CWC, but that Full Sail crowd cheering for him. They're going to love him. So it's hard to look at him as especially after being insulted and kind of made to look foolish by DiBiase this whole time. It's almost been a slow babyface turn. But he is better as a heel, so I can definitely see the heel versus heel dynamic.
I do get what you're saying as well, especially when you mention a Full Sail crowd. I entirely understand what you mean by that, because it is a captive crowd. It's a crowd that is basically all force-fed NXT, and they choose that. They want to consume NXT. They only want to consume NXT in a lot of cases. And this is a crowd that essentially only had access to NXT by choosing to spend money to do so, either on the network or actually at the arenas. This is something where NXT had a real passionate audience. You heard people chanting NXT. You never hear someone chant WWE. You do not hear that. It is a very different audience to WWE proper. So I totally get what you're saying there. Next up, I want to ask you about the winner take all. Very WWE booking here. Winner take all, the tag team and North American championships on the line. This is Bronson Reed and MSK versus Legado del Fantasma. Now, Legado del Fantasma have been really strongly pushed recently. They've been really strongly featured recently. They only recently lost the Cruiserweight Championships from their collection, as it were. So I think it's very feasible that they take the win here. Personally, I'm going with the championships retaining, even though I have this sneaking suspicion that the reason we have got all of the championships on the line so late in the game is because someone's getting called up. Who do you have for this one?
I actually do have Legado del Fantasma, but I have it for a completely different reason. Okay. I think that they're going to keep hot-shotting that North American title. I don't think Bronson Reed's going anywhere. I think he's staying put. And I think they're going to kind of play hot potato with that North American title for a bit between the two of those guys. What I do see happening, and this is more of, again, what Triple H yelled at us all about, here's my fantasy booking coming into play. I see a clear way to get the titles off of MSK without having to damage MSK. And then you can have these titles go on grizzled young veterans by having GYV take them off of Legado del Fantasma.
See, I get what you're saying there. MSK has been pushed extremely hard, almost too hard, as it were, because there's only one way to go now. The only way to go is down. So it's a good way to get it from them. And grizzled young veterans, it upsets me somewhat that they haven't already been champions at least once.
Yeah.
I think they have such immense talent. It's a crying shame that they haven't had more opportunities. But at the same time, do they need the opportunities? They have such talent that the titles aren't really necessary to get them over. The North American Championship, it's only just gone to Bronson Reed, so it would be playing hot potato. It would be taking risks with the championship as well. So I'm going to stick with the championships being retained, but that also has a lot to do with who I think is going to win the next few matches as well. So let's get through to those ones pretty quickly. Let's start with, as you might expect, I'm going to talk about the Women's Championship match, given that we know what the main event's going to be already. And that is Raquel Gonzalez defending against former NXT Women's Champion Ember Moon. Now, they made a point of saying in all preparation materials that we would have Dakota Kai and Shotzi Blackheart in their respective corners. They could definitely be involved in the finish here. Who do you have taking this one?
I don't see any way that Ember Moon wins this match, unfortunately. I love Ember Moon. She's ultra talented. She's here to eat a pin and bide some time to figure out what to do with Raquel Gonzalez. WWE put some interesting words in Raquel Gonzalez's mouth this weekend. Okay. And I don't know if that was something they asked her to say or if this is something she truly believes. But either way, her comparing herself in the same vein as Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio is a really, really big leap, considering I saw a Twitter post talking about 10 Latin women who have won world championships in the women's division before her. And some of those names will not surprise you. The Bella Twins, AJ Lee. I'm going to throw another one out there. Bayley.
Yeah, that was an oversight and a half.
But again, I see her point where they've positioned her differently to them by their putting her heritage into her character, whereas the rest of them aren't necessarily pushed with heritage as part of their character. So that's where I think she relates to Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio. But she's way too young to be making that comparison, because I don't think anybody else is making it for her.
No, I don't think they are. This very much seems like WWE putting words in her mouth, let's be fair. And I get what you're saying there. I think pride comes before a fall in this one. I actually do think Ember Moon might well be retaining this one. And the reason I think that's going to happen is because I suspect we're going to see a call up of a lot of women's tag teams very, very soon. Because we have not seen Natalia and Tamina in a little while, and they have no one to actually compete against. It's only Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke. And guess what? They're the competitors. So they're in a difficult position there. I think they need women's tag teams. Shotzi Blackheart is injured. So Shotzi and Ember Moon can't come up anymore. So for me, Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez might be getting the old comedy line around the throat and just yanked up off screen into the different one for me. So for me, Ember Moon takes it. I'm going bold on this one. I'm going bold.
I hear you. I like it.
Jada was asking the question, do you guys ever see Ciampa and Thatcher taking the tag titles? Ed, you know more than me about NXT. You take the lead on this one.
Yes, I do. However, right now, this tag team division is starting to get back to the days, and I'm going to rifle a big phrase here. We're starting to get back to the golden age of NXT tag team wrestling. We're getting back to that Gargano and Ciampa. We're getting back to that revival. We're getting back to that American Alpha phrase. We have grizzled young veterans. We have MSK, Legado del Fantasma, Breezango, Timothy Thatcher, and Tommaso Ciampa. There are some fantastic tag teams right now in NXT. We could be seeing that golden age of tag team wrestling coming back. Or they could be brought up to the main roster.
As regards to tag teams, I actually really agree. I don't think many of them will be called up. I think there might be a shuffle, certainly, in the draft, but I think Raw and SmackDown actually have quite strong tag divisions right now. Raw maybe needs a bit of work, but SmackDown's looking particularly strong. When you talk about Ciampa and Thatcher, though, I have a real concern about Tommaso Ciampa. I think this particular version of NXT is leaving him behind a little. I think his insistence on staying in NXT is actually starting to be detrimental, in my opinion. I think they have not given him really that many chances since. He's been crushed by Karrion Kross, and since then he's just not really been a feature too strong. I think he's been left behind a bit too much. So I don't think he'll be winning the championships. I think he's been left behind in the tag scene as well. And I think they're struggling a little bit to find a place for Tommaso Ciampa. That's my opinion. I don't have anything on that, but that's how I see it personally.
I think I see Ciampa as the gatekeeper of NXT. He's Cassius Ohno right now. He's the guy who's there. His storyline has no arc to it. There's no more up. There's no more down. There's just a level line. And that's okay, because I don't think Ciampa at this point in his career is worried about the glory and in the heydays of getting back Goldie. Yeah. I think those days are long gone. It's sad, but I think the days of Ciampa being the number one heel in the company and not requiring music to have one of the most entertaining entrances in all of wrestling are so far behind us that I don't even think a call up to the main roster could help.
I completely agree there. When you consider how many people have left NXT, Ciampa still being there, especially as you mentioned there, it's a great example, Cassius Ohno. Cassius Ohno wasn't winning any championships. He definitely was not. Finally, our main event. We have about 1 minute left before the show starts, so let's get this main event in the bag for our prediction. It is Karrion Kross defending against Johnny Gargano, Pete Dunne, Kyle O'Reilly, and Adam Cole. We only have 1 minute left, so we don't have too long. Ed, who have you got leaving as the NXT champion?
I have the same man leaving that's entering the building. I have Karrion Kross.
I have Kyle O'Reilly. I think a number of different people could be taking this one. I think a fatal five-way protects Karrion Kross in a huge way, and I think this is the ideal time to take it from him and get him up on that main roster where they need people desperately. That said, we do know there is a SummerSlam takeover coming. That has been reported by Andrew Zarian recently, and I believe Sean Ross Sapp confirmed it. So we know that there is going to be something near SummerSlam. And if there's a draft coming after it, there's still plenty of time. That said, I think with a fatal 5-way, they'd be hesitant to book something like this again, and I don't think they need to be beating Karrion Kross on his way out. So for me, he loses it here, and Kyle O'Reilly takes it to continue his feud with Adam Cole because, well, why not? Well, why not? Quickly to read out what J-Dub has been saying. J-Dub says, I'd like to see a small faction of NXT guys called up and kept together. Not a Retribution type thing, but more of a Nexus type thing. I think they're kind of one and the same, to be completely honest with you there. The Nexus came up similarly to Retribution, made more of an impact, sure, but got similarly destroyed along the way. Both teams outlived their initial storyline in no time at all. It's a shame, but it is what happened. JW is going for Pete Dunne for the main event and saying Cross is heading to Raw sooner rather than later. I think Cross versus McIntyre will be something we see before the end of the year. Do you think Cross will be joining Raw or SmackDown anytime soon, Ed?
I don't. I honestly think that Cross is there for the long term. I think Triple H is going to hold on to this man as long as he can. Cross is a much better promo than people give him credit for. Cross is the ultimate package. He's a guy that Vince could love. He can talk just enough to get by. He has Scarlett as a valet, not as a manager. She's a valet. She's not there to distract. Well, she's there to distract everyone, but not in the way that WWE normally uses female managers to do so. This dude is the total package. Can I see him on Raw and SmackDown? Absolutely. But I think they're going to hold off on it because I don't think they need another big, beefy guy just yet. Yes, they have a Braun Strowman-sized hole to fill. But I don't necessarily think that they should or need to fill that hole because you've still got Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre on Raw, and you don't need a guy like that to take on Roman Reigns.
You don't. Roman Reigns can genuinely work with anyone. Incredibly versatile man. We have our intro currently playing. It is a lot of Scarlett holding cards, which is nice. This for me is a lot of first time stuff. I know what generally happens in NXT, but I'm usually reading it rather than watching it. That said, there's a lot of people flexing at the minute. Just a lot of people flexing. That's the thing that always confuses me. You look at Raw and SmackDown, and they are attacking each other in new and unique and ridiculous ways, with forklifts, with cinder blocks. You go to NXT and it's all stripped back. It's all much clearer and much more simple. The storytelling very, very different. Jay Quick is going with Adam Cole winning and holding it till Takeover SummerSlam, so a very short reign from Jay Quick's suspicions there. What do you think will be match of the night?
Match of the night for me or match of the night in general for everyone? Match of the night for me, regardless, is going to be Cameron Grimes versus LA Knight because that's the story I'm most invested in, and I love these two men. Wow. From a wrestling standpoint, it's going to be hard to beat that Fatal 5-Way. But if anybody can, it's going to be that 6-man tag.
The 6-man tag should be amazing, even just with MSK involved doing their thing. You've got talent top to bottom in that show. But yeah, the Fatal 5-Way is just going to be carnage. You've just thrown together 5 of the best guys in the world and said, all right, go wrestle. You don't need to give them any instruction. They will find a way to make it the best damn thing you've ever seen in your life. This is what they do. So I'm hyped. Now, because we are doing a joint watch party with myself and Ed, I actually cannot hear the musical intro happening right now. Hope you can, Ed. I can see you've got 2 sets of headphones on for the occasion.
I was going to say, I can, and you're not missing much.
That's a shame. That's a shame.
She's no Poppy. Let's put it that way. She's no Poppy.
Fair enough. Chelsea is asking if NXT free on the network in UK. If so, who's fighting tonight? NXT is not free on the network. You do have to pay the network subscription to get it. But the card is pretty damn good. Even just the main event, which is Karrion Kross versus Adam Cole versus Kyle O'Reilly versus Johnny Gargano versus Pete Dunne. Lot going on there. Lot going on. We have a close-up of a door with a spotlight. We have Todd Pettengill opening the show.
This is weird because now we're on the flip side of what we normally are when we're watching Raw and SmackDown. now I'm the one who's behind because Peacock is the worst thing ever created.
Oh, of course. Of course.
My childhood is back. NXT. Oh, they had the opening intro. I didn't want to talk over you because you were talking about it, but they had that old school early '90s introduction of like the new era where they had NXT, the force in sports entertainment, and I'm just like, oh, all the feels of my childhood within your house.
We are opening with the 6-man tag match. I'll be careful to avoid too many spoilers, but I will give some updates as we go along the way. Chelsea is asking, is it worth watching? I really enjoy every NXT takeover, even though I'm not a regular NXT watcher. If you just like really good wrestling, NXT is the place to be. Ed, what would you say if you were to try and convince someone that it is worth watching this show?
There's never been a bad takeover, ever. Like, there are people who say that some of them aren't as good as the rest, but when you think of a good WWE pay-per-view, takeovers are often better. There was a time period where the main event were doing big 4 shows with a takeover beforehand, and the takeover was often looked at as the, hey guys, here's what we can do better. And WWE would go, yeah, we can't. We just can't.
There was a long period of time where that was the case. Just a long period where it was such a challenge. And so many people in the locker rooms, they were the ones issuing the challenge. They would have been calling up the Drew McIntyres and Seth Rollins afterwards and saying, hey, did you see the show? Did you? Good luck. You just know that was happening. J-Dub says NXT pay-per-views are consistently great. I genuinely cannot disagree with that. You just know what you're going to get. The storytelling is going to be very simple, and it's got that sort of New Japan feel, where it's just clean, clinical, solid wrestling, and it doesn't outstay its welcome. I think not enough is said about the fact that NXT takeover shows are usually finished within like 2.5 hours. Yep. They're shorter than Raw.
5-match card.
5-match card.
Give me 5.
And matches don't outlive their usefulness. That's a concern that I have with a lot of the main roster pay-per-views, because they're so determined to make it a 3-hour pay-per-view. What you get is quite a bit of filler, because people are being told, okay, go and have a 24-minute match. All right, but we do our best work in 15. Doesn't matter. 24. It does happen.
And by the way, I cannot wait. I don't know however much some of these people have seen about MSK, but I cannot wait to watch this big man toss these little buddies of his into some of these moves that they do, because it is going to be fantastic to watch colossal Bronson Reed throw these little men around.
I completely agree. He's definitely the big guy, the hoss in the match, which is exciting in its own special way. What can I say? I just like the idea of having at least one person of consistent, strong force in a match like this so that everyone can take advantage of it. There is more than enough room for the little athletic guys, and there is more than enough room for the tank to stride in and just barge people to one side. Wrestling is a many splendid thing.
And the one thing I want to say about this match is Legado del Fantasma, the group as a whole, is probably one of the greatest stories of, we're going to take people that we didn't give a crap about and make them relevant again. You think of Ricochet and Mustafa Ali and people like that, and how WWE just sort of kind of lets them linger. The NXT decided, let's have Raul Mendoza and Joaquin Wilde get kidnapped by a random masked luchador. And then 6 months later, maybe 3 or 4, 6 months later, they come back out to help Santos Escobar, formerly El Hijo de Fantasma, and rebirth this beautiful faction where these guys are once again relevant and no longer jobbers.
They've been a huge part of NXT for a while, essentially since someone in the WWE said, yeah, we'll just push them. And it was really that simple. It was really just as simple as someone saying, yeah, we'll give them a chance. And they've shown that they deserve that chance. They really have. They haven't picked up all that many wins outside of Santos Escobar, of course, has been a cruiserweight champion for a long time. But they've still delivered in every possible way. The thing is, if you put this act on the main roster, do people give up hope and lose interest sooner because of the loss record that the tag team at least have had?
Possibly. But Legado del Fantasma does a great job of losing matches that they're supposed to lose.
Yeah.
Because they're the heel bad guys, and that's what they do. But they do it in such a way that makes you know that they're not being... It's not Brock Lesnar crushing them in a minute and a half on a Saudi pay-per-view or a Royal Rumble because, reasons. Poor Ricochet.
Sometimes all you need to do is make sense.
Yeah.
And to be fair, Brock Lesnar beating Ricochet made sense. But my God, was it a difficult watch. Good thing I didn't watch it because I don't watch the Saudi Arabia shows. I've dodged some bullets on that one, I tell you.
Yeah.
I've dodged some bullets. That's careful phrasing right there. Apologies on that one. Yeah. WWE are currently celebrating the fact that NXT Takeover is trending, and they always do that, and it always results in a even stronger trend because everyone jumps on it and starts talking about it. It's a wonderful thing. Just reminding people about the fact that they can, in fact, talk about the show on Twitter if they want to. It's clever. It's clever.
I do like the matching gear for both teams, and obviously Legado del Fantasma, they're a faction. They obviously should have matching gear.
Yeah.
I do love that Bronson Reed has pulled out some green to help fit in with MSK.
He actually fits very nicely. The design of the gear suits perfectly, but it does remind me a little bit of Roderick Strong with the AOP. When he came out in the AOP gear, and it was just a case of, what are you doing? What?
No. Roderick Strong with AOP was like Triple H trying to be Shield Dad, or Kurt Angle trying to be Shield Dad.
Kurt Angle at least recognized that he was just playing this off for laughs and it was ridiculous. He was stood there like, look, I'm in the Shield. Meanwhile, Triple H came out in the flak jacket and was like, yeah, I'm a good guy now. I'm cool. No, you're not. You're their dad. Just accept your position. Just accept what you're there for. You're there for a cheap laugh. You're not there to look good. Stop looking good. But it's Triple H. Of course he made himself look good. Bronson Reed did have a pinning position there, but apparently not on the legal man. That's always the one of the best resorts for the heel team. Oh, of course. That's a spot that's overdone. What can I say? But this is what I mean. The ideal situation of having at least one big guy who no one can pick up. Mm-hmm. Reminds me a little bit of Ryback and Mark Henry, which was just awful in every possible way. But we are where we are.
Mark Henry making some news today. Apparently,
Henry did make news today. Yeah.
I mean, God forbid the man support Braun Strowman, a man who he thinks is super talented and could do great things, and everybody's like, no Braun Strowman in my AEW.
It's been a little while since we had the release show here on Twitch when everyone was released, and we immediately jumped on and started talking about it. I remember saying then, with Braun Strowman, I know Mark Henry is going to be trying desperately to get him signed. I know the Big Show, or Paul White, I should say, is going to try desperately to get him signed. But I don't personally think AEW are going to be that interested. This, for me, just confirms that. Mm-hmm. That Mark Henry's out there saying, oh, yeah, there's definitely interest on both sides. No one else is saying that. No one else is saying that. I do find it interesting that Braun Strowman took the opportunity very recently to jump on and say, you can contact me here if you want me. And then a couple of days at most later, oh yeah, there's interest from both sides. I think Mark Henry is trying to drum up some interest on both sides. I don't think AEW needs him. But at the same time, if someone's being offered work, I'm not going to tell AEW not to sign him. I saw people tagging Tony Khan and tagging Cody Rhodes and saying, we definitely don't want this guy. It's not your call. It is not your call. If AEW want to sign Braun Strowman, then AEW should be able to sign Braun Strowman. If that makes you want to turn off, turn off. I mean, I hate to be Triple H about this, but if you're not a fan of someone and it's enough to make you turn off, you're just going to have to turn off on that one.
And I do love that people are pulling out the me and my buddy Mark aren't going to watch anymore episode of Monday Night Raw that did 4.6 million, and now they're doing 1.6 million. And it's like, it's a bad look, but at the same time, we all know that those numbers are skewed. Those numbers are different, especially 10 years into this pandemic of what it feels like.
Yeah.
That we all watch media differently. How many of us watch Raw on a day-to-day basis? But how many of us DVR it? Like, I DVR Raw every week. I may not watch it, but I DVR it and I'm here with you every week.
Yeah. It's a very different experience nowadays than what it was. A lot of people do just watch the highlights, which is why quite often the highlights are more viewed than Raw or than SmackDown like a week later. Pardon me just one moment.
And this is a good time to remind people that Tom does wrestling watch parties every Monday and every Friday for Raw and for SmackDown at 8 p.m. EST. I want to say that's 1 a.m. BST.
Correct.
But I'm not sure.
You've nailed it. You've nailed it. It is 1:15 a.m. right now over here in Britain.
Uh-huh.
It's difficult.
Sorry, Bronson Reed just did a tope and knocked everybody down, and it's that standard spot, but it still gets me every time.
I like how afterwards I can see him just walking casually back to his corner. Like, okay, yeah, nailed that. Really proud. Little bit of a strut. He's happy. He's happy. Sometimes that's all you really need. Just a really hyped up, cheerful guy who just nailed a really nice looking move.
There was a great one. If you haven't seen the highlight, Escobar was trying to get himself involved in a tag team. I want to say it was a tag team title match between MSK and Legado del Fantasma. And he had himself up against the boards. And Bronson Reed did a hockey play where he basically just squished him. And poor Santos Escobar ended up a squish mosquito.
They're good at those. They're good at like the enforcer moments. Do you remember Keith Lee and Adam Cole?
Mm-hmm.
Just straight over the top. Adam Cole goes flying.
Keith Lee was great for a memorable GIF moment in NXT. He'd always pop up out of the weirdest places because their camera work is phenomenal, as opposed to WWE's Kevin Dunn camera work.
The only good camera work I can think of from SmackDown is the powerbomb. Just because I felt
fantastic.
The camera looking up made it look like he'd just fallen off a damn cliff. But yeah, NXT by and large does it a lot better. I think they just plan out better, to be completely honest.
Mm-hmm.
I think Raw and SmackDown are just sort of in the nature of producing half a match and then expecting everyone to just work it out from there on out. Whereas NXT has a lot more rehearsal because they have the time. I think they're just in the habit because of the amount of touring that Raw and SmackDown do. Now is the time to script things. Now is the time to rehearse. Now is the time to reshoot. They did the greatest wrestling match ever. That looked like that's where they were heading, just shooting and reshooting matches. But then Edge got injured and they decided not to bother with it just in case the extra effort made things work against them.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, they've been live again, apart from Alexa Bliss costume changes.
And also NXT with the production quality. They give me one of my favorite things, which is my favorite commentary team out of all of wrestling. We have Wade Barrett, we have Beth Phoenix, and we have Vic Joseph. To me, it is the perfect team.
That's absolutely fair. Can't hear a word they're saying personally right now. Only the one set of headphones after all. But I'm sure at some point I will be able to work out a way to make that one go. Beth Phoenix has been something of a revelation. When she first came in, expectations were low. Expectations seemed to be genuinely low.
And she took a bit to get involved and really get her feet in. Now, granted, zooming in really didn't help in the beginning of the pandemic. Her zooming into these things with Mauro Ranallo really didn't click. But her being there in person, Wade being there in person, really helps. And they don't have to have fake people over there to call the action like they did a couple takeovers ago during the pandemic where they had fake Beth Phoenix with red hair.
Right. I missed that one. That just sounds like fun. What can I say? It just sounds nicely crazy and very WWE.
Yeah, so WWE didn't like the idea of having Vic Joseph sit at the commentary table by himself because he was the only one who was calling the shows from the arena. and then Beth Phoenix and Mara were both Skyping in.
Right.
So they put two people next to Vic Joseph on the table. They weren't saying anything. They didn't have a headset on, and they didn't look anything like who they were supposed to be. But WWE apparently thought that it'd be a better idea to physically see three people sitting there because three people are talking.
That is so WWE. Just massively unnecessary. Just to try and avoid, people won't like the idea of seeing someone sat on their own. I think people probably like the idea less of randomers sat next to the guy. But hey, it's one of those. Once something goes viral on Twitter, you might as well have not bothered trying it. Once it's out there, it's out there. There's no turning the clock back. What can I say? Because we're near the end of the match, or at least we're near.
We think we are.
I'd like to say it's hotting up. The tempo's going up, but it's NXT. It starts at this tempo. I am always very impressed at the stamina of NXT performers to keep up this pace for so long. It's just incredibly impressive. Oh, that was a good spot.
I also think it helps that these guys do this, in the pandemic they're doing it once a week, but even when they're doing their Florida loop or they're doing house show loops or they're doing whatever it is, the major NXT people aren't doing 30-minute matches at a house show 3 times a week.
Absolutely.
So they're able to work in the PC, and as Cody Rhodes says, and I honestly don't agree with Cody Rhodes here, but I'll say it because it needs to be said. He talked about how, NXT matches are great. It's wrestling school, but it's not.
Basically,
that's what you were hiding.
Attention. Yeah, I was hoping you were paying attention to that, but someone was upset. Someone was very upset.
Indeed, they were.
Yeah, it definitely feels like we're coming to the end now, but it also seems like it's setting up an actual feud there for a bit more long term,
which is great.
Yeah,
because give me Bronson Reed versus Santos Escobar. Give me that match. I'll take it.
It's interesting that Escobar lost one championship only to go straight into a feud for the next one. I'm fine with it. And it really shows how much he's impressed during that Cruiserweight Championship run, that they absolutely 100% trust him to keep going.
Well, I'm all for one tonight.
We'll see how that relates later on, because we'll have one new champion, but there's a lot of championship matches, and there's 2 championships being retained so far. I can't imagine everyone's going to keep them.
And I do like that the Rascals are being treated like big deals in NXT. Because how many times have you seen guys come into NXT and they get the Keith Lee, we don't really know what to do with you right away. We're going to, take 3 or 4 months, or in Keith Lee, we'll take a year and a half and figure out what you are and what we want to do with you.
Yeah.
MSK seemingly got hired, and then we're like, all right, cool, Dusty Classic. Let's have some tag teams. Let's put some titles on you guys.
It was like they literally sat there in the planning meeting and said, okay, we need to work out who the new champions are going to be. And someone's just sat there saying, should we bring in the Rascals? Yeah, sure. Why the hell not? Just start from the end and go from there. Whereas with Keith Lee, I don't feel they really worked out how to use him until he'd already popped up on the main roster.
Mm-hmm.
After that, he was suddenly everywhere. In that build-up, when they came back from Saudi Arabia and they had no one, and then suddenly at Survivor Series, when he took on Roman and really took on Roman, that for me felt like the moment when they realized that Keith Lee can be pretty good. He can. Before you knew it, he was a double champion, then he was a single champion, then he was coming up on the main roster. He's beaten Randy Orton, and really, on the main roster so far, beating Randy Orton is the only thing that he's done, like of significance. But you know he's going to get his moment again because it's Keith Lee, and clearly somebody really likes this guy.
I'd say that. I would love to sit here and say Keith Lee's definitely going to get another moment, and Keith Lee's definitely going to get another opportunity. Let's remember what this resembles most. Finn Balor was drafted in the top 5 picks of a draft.
Yeah.
He then came in and beat Roman Reigns on television in a match. He then beat Seth Rollins for the Universal Championship, relinquished the title, and then Finn Balor when he came back, was in feuds over, you're short, I'm tall.
That is a very fair comment. He did briefly have an Intercontinental Championship run, but it's forgettable. He had a feud with Seth Rollins that was great, but other than that, that's basically it. He fought with Baron Corbin because Baron Corbin's tall. He fought with Bobby Lashley because Bobby Lashley's tall. And it was the exact same story on both sides. And I mean the exact same story. He had a feud with Bray Wyatt, which was also a very similar story. Essentially, it boiled down to, you're small. You can't beat me. Okay, well, I've painted my face now. Oh, no, I lose. And that was it. That was it. It was infuriating to me.
And just so we remember, we didn't see face-painted Finn take on the Bray Wyatt.
And I still don't want to. I still really don't want to. I don't want to see the face paint back. I think it cheapens the Finn Balor character, and the main roster can't be trusted with it. The creative team, for me, cannot be trusted. We're having a view of the Mae Young Classic from 4 years ago.
Oh, that's because there was a match between Xia Li and Mercedes Martinez there.
Yeah. I think that's a really good throwback.
This is long-term storytelling. I mean, I don't think they tried to do this.
Yeah, I think it's accidental long-term storytelling. I think someone on Twitter has picked up on the fact, oh, they had a match at the Mae Young Classic way back when, and someone in the WWE seen that and immediately scrambled to find the match. Oh, we can use it. We can pretend this was always a thing. That happens all the time in wrestling, not just WWE. That genuinely happens all the time.
To be fair, the Mae Young Classics were absolutely fantastic.
They really were.
And the fact that that Xia Li has been around for over 4 years, and she doesn't feel like Aaliyah, and I love Aaliyah, but we think of Bayley and we think of Sasha Banks and whatnot. How long have they been on the main roster, roughly? Or how long do they feel like they've been on the main roster?
Sasha Banks has been there 6 years. Bayley has been there 5.
Great. You want to know who was on the same season of Breaking Ground in NXT when the WWE Network first started in WrestleMania 30? Aaliyah, Sasha Banks, and Bayley.
Yeah.
Guess who's still in NXT and still isn't doing anything of anything significant?
It's
7 years later.
Oh, it's not a great look. And once again, you wonder why they stay. You really do. You wonder why they stay.
I think somebody likes her there, and somebody thinks that she has talent. And that's great. I'm happy that they're keeping her around. That being said, when you're having these releases, can we keep a Ruby Riott and get rid of an Aaliyah?
I can't imagine Aaliyah's being paid all that much, unfortunately.
I agree, but I'm just saying, I like Aaliyah. She's fantastic, but I'd really like to keep Ruby Riott.
You never know. Maybe Ruby Riott will be coming back in no time.
I can't wait for the reveal of Tian Shaw. I really can't.
This has been, I think it's the first storyline Xia Li's actually really had, which is confusing when you consider she's been in a Royal Rumble. I believe 2019 she appeared in the Royal Rumble, and actually
I think she's been in 2.
She's been in 2.
I think so.
I can only really remember 1, which says a lot, to be fair. Although I did forget to go to Kai was in a Royal Rumble, so you never can trust me. But it's good that she's being used, and that's certainly a very powerful look she's got now.
She does. I love that NXT keeps people around until they know what they're going to do with them, and they give them time to develop, and they let them change and rework who they are. And they've also revitalized Boa. Now, granted, Boa's not doing anything, but they're taking a chance to try to utilize Boa for the Chinese market because it's a viable market that they want to produce.
Yeah.
Hold on. Yes, Chinese market. Hold on. I had to double check to make sure. Didn't want to make that mistake.
Yeah,
Xia Li is a Chinese market.
We definitely don't want to make those mistakes. J-Dub is saying that Ruby will fit in nicely on AEW. That's where I see her going as well, personally. I think they're in need of veterans, and I think she would add a lot to that locker room just in experience, even before you consider overall talent. I think that's where she'll go. It'll be a good choice for her.
I just want to point out two things. And I love AEW, and their women's division is finally getting back on track and finally being produced the way I think that they intended it to be produced all along. But let's remember, Mickie James is helping run the NWA women's division for that women's division show. I wouldn't be surprised to see Ruby Riott pop up there if her non-compete is up by then. I don't know about the dates and how they work.
I would not be particularly surprised to see people pop up if their non-competes are up at that time. But even then, it's very possible, even likely, I think, that non-WWE women's talent will all be wrestling at that NWA show. I think there'll be a lot of low knees, particularly when you consider that AEW has basically a handshake agreement with everyone. And everyone. I'll stop. Everyone.
You know what? AEW has a handshake agreement with everyone. I have a question. Everyone, what are you getting out of these handshake agreements?
I have that question too.
Like, don't get me wrong. I think working relationships are great. But working relationships work best when both sides get things out of it. New Japan is great for this because New Japan and Ring of Honor have for years had a wonderful working relationship where every few here and there, and New Japan will send a bunch of stars, like legitimate stars, to Ring of Honor, and they do shows where they get to work with some of the top Ring of Honor talent.
Yeah.
Ring of Honor then typically got to go ahead and send mostly their tag teams and their juniors to work in the Best of the Super Juniors, to work in their tag team division. And also, a couple of times they got to put their main title on a Wrestle Kingdom card. That's a good working relationship.
That's a very good working relationship. I first saw Jay White wrestle at a Super Show of Honor, after all.
Mm-hmm. And think about, I was going to say, Jay White was part of Ring of Honor for years.
Yep.
On Excursion. Sho and Yo of and New Japan were the Tempora Boys. Now, not all excursions work out well because that's bad.
Yeah, we think of Okada as a perfect example of something that did not work out well.
Oh, Okada and Impact. But the reason why New Japan doesn't want to work with Impact.
Literally, yeah. I think the current Impact Tag Team Champions are something of an apology.
No, they're no longer the current Impact Tag Team Champions.
Has that changed?
Yes, Violent by Design won them by using Rhino's I get to have a title match of my choosing thing and cashed in for the tag team titles.
Fair enough. J-Dub has asked, how many AEW wrestlers have stopped by Impact or NWA since these agreements came into play?
Oh, one. The answer is one.
Was this for an NWA Women's Championship match with Thunder Rosa?
No, it was Kenny Omega wrestling at Impact.
Of course it was, yeah. Oh,
no, God. And no, right. No. I was gonna say no Impact stars have wrestled because the Good Brothers have wrestled once on Dynamite,
yeah.
But nobody else has gone. I'm sorry, no, wait, I lied. There's two more. Matt Hardy's what are they called? Oh, Private Party. Were on Impact once as well.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I had to really think and remember. That's how bad these working relationships are. I mean, Tony Khan's been on Impact a whole bunch, but he's cutting really Impact sucks promos.
Yeah, that doesn't really benefit the talent, though, does it, when Tony Khan walks on and starts cutting promos? Jada was saying rumors were Sammy Guevara was supposed to go to Impact but refused. Do you have the source on that at all, J-Dub?
Sammy Guevara is a source on that one.
Sammy I can Guevara confirm that one. On that one.
See, Sammy has come out and talked about it. Jericho has talked about it as well.
Fair enough. We won't call that one a rumor then, because after all, we have a first-hand source and a second-hand source on that one as well.
Yeah, Sammy was
I always
apparently
like it when people just come out and say things.
Sammy was apparently supposed to go and work with the X division. His plan was, I win the title, I defend it on Impact, I defend it on Dynamite, and then I let the title go because I don't want to lose.
Ah,
Yeah.
yeah. No. No, that suits no one, even less than the Kenny Omega situation suits no one. The Kenny Omega situation at least suits AEW. There's a winner there. Whereas, yeah, no, no.
Yeah. Sammy's and the best part was Sammy was set to go and they had him planned to go, and then Sammy basically was told, "No, don't do it. The creative's not good."
Great.
And that came from Jericho. Jericho apparently came out on one of his podcasts and was like, "Yep, basically we told Sammy not to go because the creative wasn't good."
Right. Fair enough. Do you remember when Jake Hager first came back?
I do.
And Chris Jericho mentioned We the People was bad creative and that people shouldn't shout it. That apparently was created by Jake Hager. Apparently that was his original idea. And I got that from Cesaro, who was involved in some of those pitch meetings.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, we were talking, we was a round table with Cesaro about a year and a half ago now, back before pandemic happened. And he just slipped it in there. He just slipped it in there as a headline generator, just to say, "We the People, by the way, that was ours and it's great." So I always wonder how much tension there may be between individuals there, because I remember Jake Hager just standing there stoically, refusing to say anything.
I think it's funny. We've heard rumors, and I believe these have been heavily reported by everybody, and I think they've even been confirmed by some at AEW, that Jake Hager wasn't supposed to be the big bombshell that night.
He was not. No. AEW unfortunately have a bit of a habit of over-promising and under-delivering. Sometimes because it's out of their hands. In that case, it was out of their hands. But also sometimes they say Pac coming back is going to be a massive change in wrestling overall. And we end up with what we end up with. Bailey has joined us and is asking how much time is remaining with Jericho's contract with AEW. Does he have a next stop? I can confirm that however the hell long Jericho wants is left on Jericho's contract with AEW. And essentially, from everything he is saying personally, he'll be there until he chooses to retire.
I would guess, if we're going to just guess, 3 to 5 years.
I think essentially Jericho is one of those where once he slows down in the ring properly, he will start to call it. And I absolutely respect that. But I think at the moment, what he's doing is just putting over other people. And I respect that as well. A win has been picked up. Are you all caught up, Ed?
I am. Xia Li has defeated Mercedes Martinez.
She has, with what looked like essentially a jumping Trouble in Paradise with like an earlier launch, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
It was a good spin. It was a very good spin, but she didn't quite get the height she was looking for, I don't think. That, I think, is what we both expected, because Xia Li needed it. It continues her storyline. It continues her build. Meanwhile, Mercedes Martinez, we've talked about gatekeepers. It seems like Mercedes Martinez is the gatekeeper of the women's division right now.
Very possible. And gatekeeping, just so everybody understands, I say gatekeeping as a very important position.
Yeah.
Because Tyler Breeze, for a long time, was the gatekeeper of NXT until Cassius Ohno came in. And being that guy that, to prove yourself to really get to that next level, you wrestle this person. You have a good match with this person. Because these people can wrestle everybody. They can get a good match out of anybody.
It's a hurdle as much as anything. It's just a hurdle for someone to go over. And really, when you look at the main roster, there are a few gatekeepers. Sheamus has been the gatekeeper for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
He was for Apollo Crews way back when. He has been recently with Ricochet and Humberto Carrillo. I'd expect him at some point to be a gatekeeper for Damian Priest as well, but we'll wait and see when that one launches. Mercedes Martinez has gotten hold of a chair and essentially gotten rid of Xia Li. So slowly but surely, they're just getting rid. Oh, but we're entering Spooky Town now.
I like the lighting. The lighting's nice.
We are entering potential Alexa Bliss future opponent sort of stuff. Well, it looks like something quite interesting might happen. They certainly seem to be laying out who the next opponent for Mercedes Martinez might be.
Well, if it's Tian Sha, I'm all in.
This is a very strong background push, and I think this is telling. You've got to push for Xia Li, obviously, but Tian Sha is also getting a push, just not as a featured player. She's a background player. The push is still there. Mark Henry received a background push in the Nation of Domination, for example, and look what he became. For a while, The Rock was getting the background push because Farouk was the focus, and so on and so forth. Sometimes the background push is what takes you all the way.
It's also good because they're introducing a character that they don't quite know what they're doing with her yet. Tian Sha is an unknown character as of this moment. We don't know what it's going to be or how it's going to resolve itself. She looks like she's going to be, like, I'm not going to use the phrase, but I'm going to final boss. But, you know, Meiko Satomura is the final boss.
Yeah.
But Tian Sha is that next level boss. It looks like in NXT.
I have no issue with a final boss character. I like the concept, particularly if they at some point pick up a championship and you've got to get through some hurdles to get to them. I like that sort of storytelling. I like that. My concern here watching this is that we've got a female fiend on our hands, particularly when you consider she just got hit with a chair and shrugged it off. I don't like that. But that's just me. This isn't main roster after all. The rules are different. Jacob says, loss or not, this is way better for Martinez than Retribution. And I completely agree there. Completely agree.
I mean,
there's Retribution was. There isn't a Retribution anymore.
I was going to say, there's no Retribution, so anything's better than that.
Yeah, Retribution, I think, did nothing for no one. He got Ali on TV. That's basically the only thing worth mentioning. Jacob's also asking, who is that behind the mask and hair? Do we have any leads on this, Ed?
We have a whole lot of speculation and a whole lot of we think we know, but no, nobody really knows for sure. It could be anybody. My guess is Karen Q. Okay, Karen Q has been signed to a developmental contract for a decent amount of time, but she's never really appeared for the most part on television. I think she had gotten hurt at one point, so this Tian Sha would be a nice way of, if she were still lingering with an injury, she could kind of sit back and do the Tian Sha gimmick and get ready. It fits in with the cultural storyline that they're trying to tell. Does it perfectly fit? No, but it's WWE and they're being as gentle-handed with the cultural sensitivities as they can. It's a whole lot better than what normally happens on WWE TV, let's be honest.
Very true. I think it's a good shout, and I think it does make sense from a cultural standpoint, as you're saying, as well as the fact that there are a number of people it could be, but build-wise, that sort of slots together nicely as well. We currently have Tommaso Ciampa and Timothy Thatcher backstage in a dark room, shouting at a camera. That's all I've got. That's all I've got from this so far. They seem angry.
So on Tuesday night, they are going to be having a tornado tag team match with the Grizzled Young Veterans.
Okay.
It'll likely be main eventing. It'll likely be main eventing NXT this week.
That's gonna be fun.
Yes, it will.
Every now and then, NXT just promises me a match, and I'm like, oh, should I watch? Should I watch though? But then I remember that I need sleep as well.
No, you know what you do? Because it's you and this is fantastic for you. You wake up and watch it in the morning.
Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be good. Could watch it without commercial breaks and anything. Next up is our $1 Million Championship match. It is a ladder match between LA Knight and Cameron Grimes. This is pretty big for Cameron Grimes. He's not been heavily featured on takeovers. He's not really been heavily featured at all until this particular storyline. He's been in a few matches, more than one ladder match now, with this one factored in, I believe. So he's having a few good moments out of this.
I mean, he was factored in. He had a really good storyline with Dexter Lumis last year, heading into getting himself into a prominent spot for something like this.
Has he always been this talented at promos, or is it just because he's got the right thing to talk about now?
Cameron Grimes has always been, in my mind, super talented. When he was in Impact, he was leader of a faction with Andrew Everett and somebody else.
There's too many wrestlers, it's impossible to keep up.
Yeah. But I've always loved Cameron Grimes. I think his character's always been very nice. And LA Knight is just a promo machine. The dude can talk and talk and talk.
I remember NXT had just gone to USA Network. They'd just gone to 2 hours. We were seeing Cameron Grimes, but we hadn't really seen him before that. He was being featured sparsely, but suddenly he was being featured every week, which is good because they needed to pad it out. They needed a second hour, so they didn't want to feature their main event players week in, week out, as they still don't. They wanted a couple of people to fill up the roster a bit lower down the card. And Cameron Grimes was perfect for that. I just remember hating his hat. That's the only impression I got from the guy. So I
did love the hat, though. I'll be honest.
It was a lot like me in the Iconics. I hated them, and as such, I was very happy about them. You know? The more they annoyed me, the more I thought these are gold, and I loved them.
And by the way, if anybody wants to see some of LA Knight's best work, right now you won't be seeing it because we haven't gotten what's the best of him. If you do want to see the best of LA Knight, you need to go look up Eli Drake from Impact. Because that man was a promo machine, yeah, dummy, the whole thing.
My concern here is that I think the last really big name via Impact to come in with this much heat and this much prospects was EC3. EC3 had a 5-star ladder match. A 5-star ladder match. Then he went to the main roster, and what the hell happened there? I just hope that's not the plan now.
Eli Drake has one beneficial factor to all of this, and it's a 4-letter word. It's technically 2 words, so it's 7 letters, but it's The Rock. He was on a game show style reality type thing.
Okay.
That was hosted by The Rock on TNT.
Really? Oh.
And during that, he let loose that he was a wrestler. And then all of a sudden, he showed up in Impact alongside Drew Galloway, otherwise known as Drew McIntyre. And so I think it's been pretty apparent that I think he's kept in touch with The Rock. And if that's the case, and that's part of the reason why he's in WWE, it's going to be very good for him because that's the kind of connection that can get you pushed.
That is very true. Very true. Especially if they can really lean back on it at some point in future. Really hype that up so that at some point they can say, oh, well, I know you. I've known you since here and make a match out of it. We never can tell. You never can tell. The Rock is in high demand after all.
And now I'm starting to regret and second guess myself, so I'm going to double check that. Give me one moment.
It's always worth double checking. We like to be as factually accurate as we can here.
And a grant, I'm using Wikipedia, which isn't necessarily the greatest. Yes, his name is Sean Ricker, and in 2013 he appeared on the TNT reality TV show The Hero, which was hosted by The Rock. So he does have that connection. If nothing else, he's at least met the man.
Yeah. And now here he is on NXT fighting for the $1 Million Championship in really bright yellow.
He has been very, very good at color coordinating. Whenever he does a promo, all of his clothes are color coordinated down to the sunglasses. So if he's wearing
Really?
blue in a promo and he's got sunglasses on, they're blue sunglasses, blue tinted lenses.
I
If he's
like
wearing
that.
red sunglasses, red
I
car,
very much
red
like it.
door, whatever you ask.
You can always tell who has the best merch hookup, essentially the best gear hookup. Obviously, we know Sasha Banks will always have the best gear in the company, but at the same time, you can usually tell who's working with certain people and who's doing the same work. Eli Drake, LA Knight, I should say, undoubtedly has someone on constant retainer there because gear is contractually obligated to be the talent's fault, the talent's problem. They have to deal with their own gear. There are plenty of videos of Bayley backstage cutting the sleeves off of her t-shirt so she could have the tassels that she used to wear. Plenty of videos of stuff like that. Same with the men. Everyone has to deal with their own merch, their own gear, and that's why certain wrestlers, of course, constantly changing it up. Seth Rollins, perfect example. He's got the hookup, he's got the connect.
Bianca Belair, remember, she makes her own gear.
True, she does make her own gear. So.
I mean, Sasha Banks, obviously, her husband, Makaze. I know him as Makaze. I don't remember his real name. But I know he's on Up, Up, Down, Down. He's been Mr. Castle. He's been Makaze there.
Yeah.
It's well known that he and Sasha are married.
It is, and I feel he probably designs a lot of the New Day's gear as well. Not.
At one point, he was working on Finn Balor stuff for a Mania.
Really?
There was an Up, Up, Down, Down where he was challenged by Kofi for the Up, Up, Down, Down title, and he asked Finn if he needed a minute or so to go ahead and do something with Up, Up, Down, Down, and Finn was like, "Whatever, go ahead." So I'm assuming he was working on gear for Finn.
Makes sense. I don't remember Finn Balor having much difference of gear, to be honest. I know he had the
which is surprising. Well, that's what I'm saying. I think it was right around a Mania, which would which he might have had something slightly different for that.
Fair. I mean, he did do the Finn Balor for everyone thing.
He did. As we should mention, it is Pride Month, and
it is Pride Month. Yes.
Just love everybody. Like no matter let people are allowed to love who they want to love. People are allowed to be who they want to be. Be considerate. Be kind. You don't have to necessarily agree with everybody. We're allowed to have our own different views. But sometimes keep some of those views to yourself if you don't agree. People are allowed to be who they want to be. Tom, you don't have to co-sign on any of this. I'm just saying, in my mind, if you don't agree with something, that's fine. You don't have to agree. We don't all have to agree that everything is wonderful. But you know what? As people, we should love and be kind to everyone, regardless of who they are and who they love.
My only interest is in the value of a person. Are they a good person? Are they a bad person? Where they put their penis, their vagina, is entirely their concern. Couldn't care less. That's up to them. The only thing I care about is who they are. So I happily co-sign all of this. Love who you love. Love who loves you. Be happy. However you can achieve that. Corey is saying, who have you guys got in this match? I have Cameron Grimes, and Ed, I believe you have LA Knight.
I do indeed.
So far I'm 2-1 up, but this could change things pretty quickly, especially when you consider I think I have unpopular predictions for later on in the night. Corey, how would you watch Bloodline?
I was going to say, I also love that the $1 million title is so special that it gets a very special hookup for the thing. It is still in its glass case, which leads me to believe that glass case is being smashed on somebody's head.
I would agree there. You've got to remember, this isn't just a title. It cost $1 million, which $1 million when it was first created was a hell of a lot less money than it is now. Or more, one or the other. It's more. It was more money back then because of the rate of inflation. There we go. I've got myself caught up now. Because of the rate of inflation, it should be a hell of a lot less fancy than it did, tell you that. But here we are. JW is saying I'm calling LA Knight. Corey also has LA Knight backing you there, Ed.
The LA Knight thing. That's what he does.
Right.
He's L.A. Knight.
Ah,
He likes
yes.
to point.
Okay. I've seen a couple of his promos, but they don't really stand out to me that much because obviously when I'm watching, I'm not always listening with audio.
Oh, okay. I'm like, L.A. Knight doesn't stand out to you. What kind of promo do you want, my man?
To be fair, Roman Reigns promos, they're what's doing it for me at the moment. What can I say?
That Roman Reigns character is dangerously close to very problematic in the best of ways.
Oh, yeah. If he tiptoes slightly further over the line, he's getting cancelled. Full on getting cancelled for it. Oh, and I love it.
Yes, J-Dub, he does point his name similar, but Britt Baker, as we all know, is DMD. And LA Knight is the full left to right. He's the sprinkler. But yes, similar.
I like that as a nickname. LA Knight, the sprinkler. It sounds like
I love it how I have our link on one side and I have the Twitch chat on the other. And I'm now seeing myself in double as I do something on one side. And then my eye catches it on the other. And I'm like, oh, God, I'm an idiot.
This streaming thing's not easy, is it, mate? It's not easy.
It was easier last night with alcohol on Love Wrestling's Blowing Off
Yeah,
stream.
I saw you jump on there for, was it Jackbox?
It was.
Yeah, and everyone was having a few shots along the way.
Raising good money for charity. It was fun. It was all in good fun.
Absolutely.
I did nearly choke on a shot, which is delightful. But that's what happens when you drink Fireball whiskey straight at 11:30 at night when you weren't planning on drinking that night.
Bad call. That was a move and off. Corey says, Toxic Predator 1. Wanted me to tell you guys he has Cameron Grimes. So yeah, finally someone on my side on this one. And Bailey is saying, does Ted DiBiase get involved in this match? I say yes. I believe Ted DiBiase will be picking a side here, and I think that side is going to be Cameron Grimes. Ed, do you think Ted DiBiase gets involved here?
I could very easily see it. Ted has always been somebody get involved in stuff. He's not typically a side player. That being said, this is a much older Ted who's looking to give back to the business, and he's already given so much to it. I would hope he gets involved. I kind of hope he picks a side. I honestly don't care which, because honestly, there's no losing in this match for me.
That's very true. I don't think there's any loser here. That's the real NXT power. Whoever wins, no one really loses. I think, as you say about the glass case, I think that really supports him getting involved and smashing it over someone's head. I think Paul Bearer, when he first turned on The Undertaker, that's what I'm seeing here. I think Ted DiBiase could become NXT's Ric Flair to the point where they kind of want rid of him, but he's just still sort of there. Like, the WWE for weeks, for months, were trying to get rid of Ric Flair to the point of eventually scripting something, which he still didn't bother to read, and saying, okay, this is how we're getting rid of you now. And then he literally just made it up as he went along by that point. Oh, good times.
I also want to say that this is being filmed in the CWC, which is basically the WWE Performance Center still.
Yes.
I'm almost certain it's the same building.
It is.
Just think about the people that NXT have been bringing in to teach people things. Because if Ted is here doing television, you know Ted is there doing classes.
Yeah.
Now, we all know that the Skull Sessions, and this is a little inside baseball for what happens at NXT, Skull Sessions are your final thing before you get ready to go to the main roster.
Yeah.
It's that finishing class that all of the best go to. It's currently being taught by Shawn Michaels.
Yeah.
Because Dusty Rhodes was teaching it along with promo class before Dusty unfortunately left us. Rest in peace, Dusty.
Yeah, rest in peace.
That means that Ted DiBiase, while he's here, I pray to God, is teaching promo class.
I would imagine it's Matt Bloom who currently has the head of the table, as it were, for the Skull Sessions. But I cannot imagine that you'd have a resource like Ted DiBiase and not bring him in to teach and coach a few promos. That man, in an age where it wasn't really about talking, it was all about how American Hulk Hogan was. And as a British viewer, My love of Hulk Hogan was zero. And I mean a full zero. I never cared for one moment about Hulk Hogan because I'm not a real American. I'm not even slightly American. I don't care about you fighting for the rights of Americans. I couldn't care less about any of that. Cared about Randy Savage, cared about Ted DiBiase. Those are the those are the people I cared about. But to be fair, I've always loved a bad guy anyway. What can I say? J-Dub says, can you imagine being in a class with HBK? From ring experience, it doesn't get much better than that. It really doesn't. HBK is probably the guy, as it were, when you talk about delivering in-ring storytelling, giving you something long-term, but making it last only 10 minutes. He is one of the best workers the world has ever seen. So if I ever got that chance, I tell you what, I would take a hand over fist.
If you want to hear how great these classes are, Adam Cole did an interview, and I want to say it was probably with Edge and Christian. It may have been Sam Roberts. It's one of the two, because I remember listening to it as a podcast. And he talked about the idea of sitting in a room and having Shawn Michaels go over his own matches and then Adam Cole matches, and talking about these are things you could do. These are things you can improve. And Adam Cole's number one favorite wrestler, is Shawn Michaels. So he's having his idol critique his matches in a positive way to make him a better wrestler. That's about all you need to hear about why NXT is one of the best things in the world.
I would be sat in that meeting and I'd just be hearing white noise because it's like, oh my God, it's Shawn Michaels.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh. You watch
this has been a very inventive match.
Very inventive. They're being very creative and they've got plenty of time left for it. J-Dub says, unfortunate that things ended the way they did with Bret Hart. Lifetime of amazing teachings not being shared. Yeah, I do think Bret is probably one of the most inventive and creative wrestlers of all time, particularly with the way he planned out matches and laid out what he expected of them. The phase element is something that people like AJ Styles still do, and I think Adam Cole has an element of it as well. But I don't think there are many Bret Harts left at this point. I think the age of Bret Hart, unfortunately, has passed us by. And when you look at the wrestlers we've got, they deliver in very different ways now, and expectations are different as well.
I would also say, and I understand, the unfortunate way things ended. Bret Hart isn't persona non grata with WWE, and as far as I know, now granted, the AEW appearances might have made him less liked by them. Really. But I don't necessarily know that Shawn Michaels, because Shawn Michaels and Bret have made up. They are back to being on communicative terms. They will talk. I wouldn't put it past Triple H and Shawn Michaels to be like, Bret is a valuable resource that we can use. Bret, do you want to come down and talk to these people in NXT?
I am confident that they have at some point reached out to him. Maybe after the pandemic has moved past us, we'll start to hear this. Maybe we will start to hear Bret Hart coming down to give promo classes, because there's a number of people who have, over the years, anytime basically any veteran is passing through, they get the opportunity to go down and share what they know. I know Mick Foley's been there quite a bit. Not necessarily recently, but has been there quite a bit. They recorded something of Becky Lynch when she went down to talk to the team there, and Rhea Ripley took the opportunity to make a bit of a name for herself from it. So they do really, really well in that regard of just using everything at their disposal. I'm confident Bret Hart has been asked. I just don't think that he has actually done it yet. When it comes to appearing on AEW, he burned zero bridges. Zero bridges. Jada wants to talk to you directly. But Ed, he says, I don't think they're in a place they want to have lunch together every day sitting around the ring. Maybe a one-off, but I was thinking it's a shame it's not full-time as HBK is. Ed, that was directly at you. What's your response to that?
I mean, I agree. I don't think they're at the place in their life where they're going to sit down and, have lunch at the same lunch table every day. That being said, I don't think Bret would ever teach anywhere full-time for any length of time without it being the Heart Dungeon.
Yeah.
Like, I think that phase of Brett's life is over. Like, he's not done with wrestling, but I don't think he's going to be teaching anywhere, permanent that isn't the Heart Dungeon, which unfortunately no longer exists because the Hearts no longer own the Heart House.
Very true. It's a very different dungeon now. I want to send a big thank you to Corey MLB, who's just cheered with 55 bits. Thank you very much, Corey, for those. Thank you very much, as always, for supporting the channel. Very grateful. Even just sitting here saying that myself. Don't know what's going on in bed right now. You're right there, mate.
Yeah, I just saw LA Knight get flipped backwards onto that ladder, and ow, it
Fair
hurts.
Enough. It gets worse. It gets worse. But a big thank you, Corey, of course. J-Dub says, not sure from a health perspective he could handle a full-time schedule. No, but to be fair, he might just not want to at this point.
I mean, we got to remember, teaching at the PC isn't necessarily getting in the ring and wrestling with guys. A lot of teaching at the PC, because people who teach at the PC on an in-ring basis, that's your Matt Blooms, that's your Robbie Brookside, that's your... I mean, to an extent, Undertaker does spot shots here and there to teach in the ring. I mean, we saw in the last ride how he was holding class with the big dudes of NXT at the time. Yeah. Dabba-Kato, Bronson Reed, Keith Lee, Donovan Dijak. I will never call him by his Retribution name. He will always be Donovan Dijak to me because he's from right down the road.
Really?
Yeah, he helped teach at Littleton High School, which is legitimately right down the road from my house. He taught some girls sports there while he was working as a professional wrestler for local independents.
That's cool.
Before making it to Ring of Honor.
Yeah. Oh, another 20 bits from Corey. Thank you very much. That's 75 now, so a big thanks to you. Cameron Grimes has pulled out the big gold ladder, because why the hell not? When in doubt. There's always a bigger ladder.
There is.
I found that very entertaining. There's always a bigger ladder. There was some move there. Couldn't tell you what it was, but there was a move. And now everyone is down. We had a lovely overhead shot, but that case, that's definitely going over someone's face. I'm also interested to see who Ted DiBiase has as his backup and whether he maybe keeps them for a little while longer.
I do like the security guards. I wish I could figure out who they were.
I've not looked too close, to be completely honest. I don't know enough about everyone in developmental, but it'd be funny. It'd be funny.
I mean, I couldn't even correctly, figure out who the people that were holding spears for Apollo Crews is. So I've given up trying to figure out which developmental talent, because WWE doesn't give you a really good list anymore of who's still in developmental.
No, especially right now when they've released so many people. They're going to be mostly keeping it to themselves as to who's actually being brought in. There are people being brought in. There's a lot of tryouts happening right now, but they're not really going to be mentioning it. And thank you once again, Corey, for 5 more bits. Very much appreciate it. Thank you. We are in our 3rd match of the show, this one for the $1 Million Championship. We still have the Women's Championship and, of course, the main event, Fatal 5, where we've been going just over an hour. We will be with you, or at least I will be with you tomorrow for a live watch party of Raw and, of course, for spoiler warning a little earlier in the day. We will be going on both YouTube and on Twitch for Monday Night Raw. As usual, we'll be doing Football Manager on Tuesday, Final Fantasy Remake on Thursday, and on Friday, we will be doing SmackDown, once again with spoiler warning, just before Hell in a Cell on Sunday. You can look forward to that one, because I don't know how that's going to match up to this, because we've got Hell in a Cell matches, sure, but there's a lot of late booking going on with Hell in a Cell, just a lot of late booking. Jadov says, I seem to recall an interview with Brett where he expressed regret in not being able to pass on his wrestling knowledge the way that it should have been. I felt like it was knowledge wasted. Could be getting that wrong, but that is how I remember it. I do remember him saying something like that, and this is one of the reasons I expect we'll see him go to the Performance Center sooner rather than later. Just right now, there's an active pandemic. I don't think now's the time to do so.
You also got to remember that the last student of the Heart Dungeon is currently working to produce the women's matches on the main roster, and that is Tyson Kidd.
Yeah.
TJ Wilson. Mr. Natalia, however you would like to refer to him. He is the last student of Bret Hart's in the Hart Dungeon. He is ultra talented. He has been spearheading since Fit left the women's division for Raw and SmackDown. So, I mean, Bret Hart's knowledge was passed along to him and will continue to be passed along via him. And as right now, that's about the best we're going to get for a little while.
There was a lot of communication from LA Knight there. A lot of communication. I don't know if maybe Cameron Grimes had forgotten his spot or something had gone wrong there, but he didn't hide that anywhere near as well as he should have done. Cameron Grimes showing off some athleticism. What a world we live in.
If Botchamania is still going on, Eli Drake might talk too much.
Fair. Fair. Oh, I hate it when they climb a ladder really slowly.
To the moon, though. To the moon.
Sometimes things just look painful. Sometimes
you mean like that?
Think, yeah. Sometimes I see a spot and I just think, nah, it's not for me, that. Bit of a delay that may also put us on Botchamania.
Come on, Eli.
Like we do.
He had his Jake Hager moment.
Yeah. A clear winner there by the end of it. J-Dub says it was booed heavily. Was it booed?
I can't hear it, but I have it on low enough that I can't really hear the crowd all that much. But as a heel, being booed heavily, winning a match is kind of the result you're going for. So,
fair.
Mission accomplished.
It must just be nice to have a crowd there who will boo. I've not really been focusing too much on the crowd, but hopefully they've been active like WWE need them to be. They don't look high energy, honestly. I don't know whether the crowd have been told to stay calm, as it were. They, like I say, they don't look high energy. There's not many people standing up or reacting.
Yeah, they haven't hit fever pitch NXT crowd yet, and I don't think we're going to see that tonight.
No, it feels sort of like the New Japan crowds who were told to stay sat down, not applaud, not cheer or chant, and then Jay White, of course, was shouting at them for it in a very entertaining way. It feels very much like that, and that could genuinely be where we are right now. Ted DiBiase is handing over the title. We even have some pyro. You've got pyro to look forward to.
By the way, Ted DiBiase looks fantastic. Let's just say that.
He does. As long as he laughs like that, he'll always have a place in wrestling.
And we now have the first $1 million champion since Ted Jr.
Was he the... I didn't know he was the $1 million champion.
Yeah, he brought it back when he was with Maurice.
I missed some strange times.
Yeah, Maurice was the gold-digging girlfriend of Ted DiBiase on screen, at least, for a period of time.
Jada is asking, does Ted continue to come out each week as a mentor-manager type role, or is he done? Honestly, I think at this point, he's probably done. LA Knight does not need him whatsoever. Cameron Grimes, I think, possibly did, but LA Knight definitely doesn't. What do you reckon, Ed?
I think Ted will continue to come out as long as Ted wants to. I could see this being Cameron Grimes still seeking Ted's approval, especially after losing. It could very well be that he continues to seek Ted's as the way to get to that $1 million title match.
Yeah.
And LA Knight being like, I beat you. Why do I have to beat you again?
I could see that working. And I do think, like I say, you've got someone as talented as Ted DiBiase. I would be trying to keep him around. Plus, to be fair, he doesn't necessarily just have to work with LA Knight. He could work with a number of other people as well and help to develop them, or just spend time backstage. Lots of possibilities. Jada was saying, is the title going to be like the FTW title or more like the TNT title or neither? It'll last as long as they find it valuable, but I think essentially there's only one story to tell in here, and they may have already told it. Hit Row have appeared on TV, which is always a good thing.
I was to say, you never have a bad time to see Hit Row.
Indeed. I don't know enough about the FTW title, to be completely honest.
Nobody does because it doesn't really exist.
Yeah, it was mentioned. It was, yeah, it was mentioned. It appeared. It debuted, and I've heard nothing about it since. Literally nothing.
So basically, what it is the FTW title is a title that was brought back by Taz, obviously, to give to Brian Cage to start a feud with Jon Moxley, who had the AEW title. And then as soon as it was defended once, and in that match, Taz basically cheated to make sure that Brian Cage didn't tap out by throwing in the towel. The title's no longer been defended. Brian Cage brings it out. It's a nice belt that makes Brian Cage look big and bad.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean a damn thing.
Right. Wonderful. We had a shot of Pete Dunne and Karrion Kross not getting along backstage, which is always good. And now we are warming up for the Women's Championship, where Raquel Gonzalez defends against Ember Moon. Dakota Kai is shown in Raquel Gonzalez's corner. Shotzi Blackheart was supposed to be in Ember Moon's, but Shotzi has confirmed that she is injured, so we'll have to wait and see here. Who's the face and who's the heel here? Because I know Raquel Gonzalez going into her championship win was the heel, but I don't think she has been since. Let me know on that one.
Raquel is still the heel. Raquel turned babyface for a little while, and then the moment they beat up Shotzi Blackheart in front of Ember Moon, with Ember Moon pushed against the bottom turnbuckle on NXT a couple weeks ago, clearly back in that heel line again.
Fair enough. They do that sometimes. They'll give you a brief push in a direction, realize either it wasn't working or they've lost someone that they needed to make it work, and then went from there. They actually turned Roman heel 3 times in total and then backed out of it twice. Just because someone picked up an injury. When Finn Balor picked up an injury, for example, Roman was heading towards heel at that point.
Also, Tom, because we haven't spoken about it, it was on this week's NXT, and I feel like, talking about call-ups and things like that, it makes it relevant, especially here. Yeah. Io Shirai was back on NXT TV on Tuesday.
Well, I want to say that's good to hear, but honestly, I want her on the main roster, so it's hard to really say.
That being said, she was in one of my favorite things, which won't play out tonight, but it's still one of my favorite things on NXT, which is Pop Dex versus Index. So Dexter Lumis has the affection of Indy Hartwell.
Yeah.
Indy Hartwell likes Dexter Lumis. However, Candice LeRae does not want Indy with Dexter at all whatsoever. Dexter was giving Indy a massage without her knowing. They were at a massage parlor, and she had like the facials, so she had like the cucumber on her eyes.
Right.
And Dexter was giving her a massage. And they were talking bad about Dexter Lumis, and it broke his little heart. But at the end of this, after he's walked away because he's sad Dexter, and he leaves to, the little violin song and whatnot, Indy realizes that she doesn't think he's a loser and that she adores him. So she goes to find him the next week at NXT, and Drake Maverick tells her that he last saw Dexter a couple of hours ago in a room off to the side. So she goes in, and it's a whole bunch of hand-drawn pictures from Dexter Lumis that are completely about him being called a loser and him being heartbroken. So she goes on trying to find Dexter, and last week we get a segment where Dexter Lumis presents Poppy with a hand-drawn picture of Poppy, to which Poppy is very excited and gives Dexter Lumis a hug. Because that's what you do when you get a nice gift from someone. You give them a hug. The problem was is Indy Hartwell walks in as soon as the hug happens. So now you have the two camps of Pop Dex for Poppy and Dexter, or Index for Indy and Dexter.
That picture really made the rounds.
It did.
Of the hug and Triple H's massive overaction. I enjoy Indy Hartwell and Dexter Lumis as a couple. I like that they're constantly making somewhat of progress, but they're also kind of really overdoing it at some points. I suppose it feels very schoolyard to me. But then once they actually pull the trigger on it, you can't really go anywhere. Meanwhile, the Way have been very, very beneficial to NXT.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to have factions that are that successful.
But they've also used this to end the story, because I like the soap opera portion, so then the next part is less special.
Yeah.
Candice finds out that Indy's heartbroken because of Poppy. So she goes to the ring and calls out Poppy, because Poppy was at NXT and she doesn't belong there.
Right.
And Poppy goes, well, I'm not a wrestler. I don't do the wrestle, but I have a friend who does. And of course, since Poppy does the song for Io Shirai, her and her band is Io Shirai's theme song. Out comes Io Shirai, and we're going to get a potential feud between Candice LeRae and Io Shirai, which I'm down with. If it's a tag team feud, my guess would be Saray. We haven't seen her in a couple weeks. We all know WWE loves throwing people together. And, I mean, if you're going to get Saray over, using Io Shirai as the beacon to do so isn't a bad call.
It's not a bad call at all. And I think that sounds like an on the way out feud, to be completely honest.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a going out on my back feud, which I'm absolutely fine with, obviously. I have mentioned when we're talking about call-ups, with a draft coming, big names will be drafted rather than called up. That seems the most likely scenario. Big names will be kept until after SummerSlam. And Io Shirai is easily one of the biggest names from NXT. So I think she'll be kept until the actual draft. I think it's lower down the card people who will be potentially brought up in the meantime. I think when you talk about characters, we know who Vince McMahon likes. We know he likes Robert Stone. I'm pretty sure he's taking a fancy to Hit Row pretty strong. I wouldn't like to see him work with Hit Row in any way, shape, or form, because I think that's a disaster waiting to happen, because it's Vince McMahon. He does the Vince McMahon thing. But I can see this going somewhere, and I can see Hit Row landing pretty well on the main roster. When it comes to the big names, Io Shirai, she's a big name. And if Sasha Banks does take on Bianca Belair at SummerSlam and regain the championship, Io Shirai would be absolutely perfect to waltz straight into SmackDown after SummerSlam.
I have another name for you, somebody who's perfect to waltz directly into SmackDown. Based on recent events. Spoiler warning for anybody who hasn't seen NXT UK. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Kaylee Ray is no longer the NXT Women's Champion. Miko Satomura is. I could see Kaylee Ray completely skipping NXT regular and going straight to the main roster, because her heel character of I'm the greatest, I was a 649-day NXT UK Women's Champion, would be fantastic on SmackDown right now. You could turn Bayley into a pseudo face, because immediately that's where I would go with it. You don't have to turn Bayley face completely, but you make Bayley the face for the feud. And after Bianca Belair, Bayley is caught up with this woman saying, I'm the greatest women's champion that WWE's had over the last, some odd years. and Bayley goes, "Wait, who the hell are you? What are you doing here? This is my show." And you can run that up to SummerSlam, because 649 days for the UK Women's Championship. Bayley was champion for
just over
how many? I was going to say, how many days is she claimed with her 2 reigns that she always puts together?
It's less than 400, but not by much.
So I mean, it's a ready-made feud, and
yeah,
I think you could still keep Bayley heel, but make her the face in a heel versus heel match, and make it work.
I could see that working. I genuinely could, and I think you look at the SmackDown Women's roster as it is right now. Let's say after SummerSlam you trade Bayley for Asuka. Let's just make that suggestion. Bring in Kaylee Ray, bring in Io Shirai. That's all I'd do. That's literally all I'd do to make changes there. And I'd probably take the tag team championships away from Natalya and Tamina, let's be honest.
I was going to say, are we leaving the tag team titles on the main roster? Because if we are, then we're calling up KC and KC. We're calling up Ember Moon and Shotzi Blackheart.
We're calling up Raquel and Dakota.
I want to say yes, but I keep saying no.
They would have to call up basically all of the women's tag teams.
But then you're left with Gigi Dolan and people like that tag teaming, and Zoe Stark and Zeta Ramir, which, by the way, Zeta Ramir and Zoe Stark are a fantastic tag team. But that being said, they're not the way.
I think having the way there sort of to develop around could be enough, because NXT by and large, they will have one person clearly at the top. Asuka's title reign, Karrion Kross right now. For the longest time, yes, you had Revival and DIY, but the Revival were the champions waiting for DIY to be ready. Then they were waiting for AOP to be ready. I think it could work, but I think we actually talked about this at length on the on Nick and Tom's Intercontinental Adventure yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
But our concern, for at least myself and Nick, is that the WWE is going to waltz into NXT and say, okay, I want them, and them, and I don't care about your storylines. My concern is it's going to be sort of scorched earth. They walk in, they grab everyone they want, and they just leave NXT to pick up the pieces however they can. That's my concern. And I think with the NXT women's tag division, they could be in a lot of danger, because I think a lot of the tag teams are going to be taken, or a lot of women are going to be taken and forced into tag teams. I mentioned there the idea of Io Shirai and Asuka being on the same show on SmackDown. I could see it.
Kabuki Warriors 2.0?
Basically, yeah. I could see it.
But will Paige be back? Because, the Kabuki Warriors are nothing without Paige.
Paige is still under contract. There's no reason not to have her there.
Except all the reasons that WWE has found not to have her anywhere near the product.
Yeah, except obviously all of those, yeah. I think that's a given. The WWE just doesn't seem to want Paige anywhere near the product, and yet she can literally do things that no one else can. They fired Tia Trinidad, and yet Paige is fine to have Twitch. I know it was a slightly different situation because they believed that Tia Trinidad was taking the piss, essentially. But Paige is absolutely fine with Twitch. No one else on the main roster is. It's an interesting one from me.
I'm going to be interested to see what happens, because I did some investigative journalism the other day on I don't know if you've seen this on Twitch, but you can affiliate yourself with a team on
I've
Twitch.
seen this, yes.
Okay. Have you ever happened to click on Adam Cole's team?
I have not.
During his streams?
I have not.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I heard you say something. I missed what it was.
That's okay.
It's a very, very large group of professional wrestlers on Twitch.
Okay.
Guess what one key factor is with most of those talent?
WWE?
No, the opposite.
Really?
It is Kip Sabian. It is Evil Uno. It is Matt. It's Drama King Matt. It's Vicky Guerrero, who's apparently now streaming on Twitch, which, by the way, was an instant follow for me.
Yeah. I respect that. I think I've at some point ended up in a Terry Runnels stream
I
via
did
a raid
too.
or something. Yeah, it sort of happens. Oh, interesting times. At some point, I thought to myself, maybe I should get a team, but then I look around and it's like, yeah, no team seem to want to hire me. And it's like, what do I do with one?
You
Everyone
know,
I know, they've
that
got
heel
teams that
Adam
don't seem
Cole,
to relate to them.
that heel Adam Cole deserves to put you on his team.
He should. He
After
absolutely
all the
should.
content he's been stealing from you on Thursdays.
He totally has.
First it was Bloodborne, and now he's doing Final Fantasy DLC on the same day you're doing Final Fantasy.
The same
He's stealing our
day.
audience base.
He is. And he knows what he's doing. It's entirely his fault. I'm going to keep telling him off every week.
That being said, Adam Cole, if you ever want to raid us, we'd be thankful.
Yeah.
The Chubbs Army, we'd be happy to have you.
That would be great. That'd be great. Don't think it's ever going to happen, but that'd be great. I am jealous of people who get raided by the big names. What can I say? What can I say?
We're going to get there. We're going to get there.
One day, maybe. We'll see. We'll try, and we'll see what we end up with. This match has been a lot of back and forth so far. Nothing really definitive landed on either side. Raquel Gonzalez is fighting from the top. Ember Moon looking the scrappy, resilient face here. Just not quite able to put her away. Dakota Kai has been causing the occasional distraction, playing around with the ropes a little bit, being her usual nefarious self. I like the barbed wire design that Raquel Gonzalez has now. Just going across her chest. To her neck.
Raquel Gonzalez has one of the most impressive backs that I've ever seen. I mean, it's not Kota Ibushi level.
I was going to say.
That's why I said one of. But, I mean, it's a very nice back. She really has worked on it. I also like the fact that she wears the title backwards so that when she does that nice back pose and gets those muscles going, you have that nice NXT title. Ooh.
It's one of those. She knows she has a very nice back. Sounds like a ridiculous thing to say, but here we are.
I mean, watch her pose down after she entered tonight. If you have any questions as to what we're talking about.
Yeah. Okay, I think if this doesn't do it, then this is the closest they're going to get. We're building towards a finish.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. You can see. Yeah. That's infuriating. I suspect that's the visible moment. And we won't be getting another one.
Now, I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
Is Shotzi Blackheart overzealous as a competitor? Because you've seen Shotzi almost do terrible things to her body. Sasha Banks levels of terrible things to her body, right?
Oh, yeah. Sasha Banks is a perfect comparison, yes.
Is she overzealous? Is she reckless? Or does this woman just have a death wish?
I certainly was of the opinion early on that Sasha Banks was a little reckless, and I think she was. That said, she honed it. She honed her craft to a point where she was a lot more comfortable. Mm-hmm. I think Shotzi Blackheart likes to make an impact. She likes to stand out. And I would go with Death Wish, personally, at the moment. Hopefully, a little more honing. We'll get to a bit more clinical. But at the moment, we are where we are when it comes to Shotzi Blackheart. She has picked up an injury. That's a real shame.
So, Tom, let me get this straight. The girl with the neon green hair wants to be noticed. Is that what we're saying?
That's exactly what we're saying.
I'm glad you went on the limb for that one. I appreciate it.
It's difficult to stand out, regardless of hair color and everything in that regard, in a locker room like NXT's. There are so many very talented managerial types that you need to impress in order to get the opportunities. And Shotzi Blackheart did, in fact, sit in the back for a long time before really getting a decent shot.
Agreed.
So I think she's one of those. There is a time to give everything in the ring. and it's in the big moments. Shotzi Blackheart does not follow that rule. Every moment is a big enough moment for her by the look of it.
My thing with Shotzi, and I love her to death, and she's fantastic, and I love the fact that she's willing to go 1,000 miles an hour at all times. But you need to hit the move that you're trying to hit in order to make it count.
Yeah.
And often than not, Sasha would hit the move. Yeah, Sasha would almost kill herself doing so, but she would at least get to where she needed to go.
Yeah.
More often than not, Shotzi's bad things are because Shotzi doesn't get to the spot that she's supposed to do. She either overhits it or underhits it. And there's the win.
There is indeed the win for Raquel Gonzalez. After that initial eclipse, it seemed fairly clear where it was headed, with Dakota Kai and Shotzi Blackheart essentially running off to the back. Ember had her moment, but that landing next to the ropes made it so clear everything that was coming. It's a bit of bad ring awareness beforehand. As regards talking about, I'll just see her do the Uru pose. Little simp. As regards Shotzi Blackheart, Sasha Banks initially, particularly her suicide dives, she nearly broke her neck several times. Her Meteora would go way past people. She was where Shotzi Blackheart is now. But what I mean by being more clinical in that regard is just honing and making sure that, as you say, you land your spots. You get to the right moment. You go from point A to point B. There is quite a lot of wrestling which isn't point A to point B. Vince doesn't like that. Vince genuinely doesn't like that. One of the reasons Baron Corbin is so popular backstage is because he gets from point A to point B. There is a lack of flair in Corbin outside of the certain moves which look like they're high flair, but they're actually extremely clinical. End of days, deep six, and the like. When you get to people who do over flare and don't put so much effort into the A to B, they don't get pushed. Charlotte Flair is A to B. There's the story, because Vince values story above in-ring action. Shotzi Blackheart might struggle from leaving NXT if she doesn't get used to just going from point A to point B with a couple of big spots in between, but you've still got to go from point A to point B. We are now warming up towards our main event, where Karrion Kross will defend the NXT Championship against Kyle O'Reilly, Pete Dunne, Adam Cole, and Johnny Gargano. I reckon this match is going to go for about an hour, let's be honest.
Yeah, I could think we're probably going to see 45 minutes to an hour out of this. We're an hour and a half in-ish. This match is probably going to start in about 10 of. Karate fighters.
I was waiting for you to see what I'm seeing right now.
Dexter!
It's not just karate fighters. It's a confusing world we live in. No Indy Hartwell tonight either.
She's there. I don't know if she's going to be in this scene, but she was shown arriving with Candice.
Yeah. She'll undoubtedly be coming out with Johnny Gargano. Essentially, the way could raise quite a bit of hell. Squared Table Degenerates podcast is here. Welcome, Squared Table Degenerates, saying, man, it took me 15 minutes to figure out this wasn't on WWE Network and I need to upgrade to Peacock. Has it been a while? Because it's been since before WrestleMania that it's all been about Peacock. And Ed, you're going to have to take this one away from me because I'm not over there in the US. But how's the Peacock deal going at the moment?
Peacock has done a very good job of bringing in a lot more of the content. It's still not a great platform to use. I still can't pause my live stream.
Wow.
Which is a problematic thing. So right now I can't pause this like however you could. There's a lot of good stuff coming to the network finally. There's still a lot of stuff missing. If you want vintage SmackDown, I think last time I checked, you're still out of luck.
Wow.
They're just previous to the Fox deal. For a while there, it was just the Fox SmackDowns that were on there, which is ironic considering it's an NBC app for a Fox platform that they were presenting. but it is what it is. No, Peacock's doing all right. The thing I think WWE likes about Peacock, not the thing I like, what they like, is the fact that with Peacock, anyone who has Comcast has a Peacock app. Anybody who has Peacock can see that there's a WWE event going on because it's on their main page. So they're going to get a lot of casual viewers to this. Now, granted, we're never going to know how many that is because we never know with streaming platforms how many people are watching anything at any given time. However, I guarantee you there are more people watching this NXT TakeOver with Peacock and WWE Network combined than have ever probably watched most NXT TakeOvers. Not all, because I guarantee you some of those knockdown, drag-out, amazing takeovers are probably drawing more eyes than this one.
Squared Table Degenerates podcast also say, as regards the Peacock deal, I'm not a fan of it. Lost all the old WWE pay-per-views, completely ridiculous. Don't like it one bit. My opinion only. Are the old WWE pay-per-views up on Peacock now?
I think there's a majority of them that are there. I'm looking right now to see. I mean, the Attitude Era is still being added slowly because, Peacock has decided that they want to go ahead and edit WWE history, which honestly, with the Attitude Era, probably a good call. Let's be honest. I would edit that if I were them.
And while you're looking at that, I will take this one. Square Table Degenerates podcast saying, if they go more towards a casual viewer, they're going to make the product even worse. Now, to be fair, they've been aiming more at the casual viewer for a while now. They are focused on the casual viewer and have been for a number of years. Bringing in Nick Khan when they did, bringing in Adnan Virk, now Jimmy Smith, bringing in Pat McAfee, it is all based around appealing to casual sports fans rather than focusing primarily on the hardcore audience. The hardcore audience, that's what NXT is for. That's what for a long time AEW has been aiming towards, the more hardcore audience rather than the casual viewer. But when it comes to actually purely appealing to casuals, that's what Raw has been doing. To a lesser degree, that's what SmackDown's been doing. But the Peacock deal is definitely aimed at drawing casual fans, particularly people who haven't watched for ages or, in fact, have never watched and just see WrestleMania or something like that pop up in their Peacock and think, oh, I've never watched a WrestleMania. I'll give that a shot. Corey has said they should just transfer everything on the network to Peacock, to be honest. They're trying. Upload times are the issue that's actually refusing to let them do that. Server space as well. It is a lot of stuff to go on at once, as well as the fact that they are editing as much as possible to get rid of the more controversial content. And JW is very happy to see Gargano rocking the HBK jacket.
I'm just looking over. I'll give a shout out. Our own Matt the Misfit on Twitter. He has his Google document. And there's a pretty decent listing of pay-per-views on here. The big four are all pretty much here in their entirety. The In Your Houses are, I think, here in most of their entirety. There's a bunch of pay-per-views on here. It's a decent list. I don't think it's definitive and full yet, but it's not nearly as bad as it was. I mean, they at least now have all 37 WrestleManias, considering WrestleMania 6 and 22 were randomly missing from the network at one point when it first dropped on Peacock.
This is so confusing to me because I've literally still got the entire network and everything there. And the idea of just losing all that is so confusing. Yeah, shut your mouth. I'm going to keep it forever.
Until BT Sport buys it?
Until BT Sport buys it, probably, yeah. But to be fair, I already have BT Sport, so I watch Raw and SmackDown. So that works out for me. Corey says Tuesday is going to be an insane NXT, can already feel it. Well, TakeOver's been good so far. It depends on the end result of this particular championship match. I think unless Kyle O'Reilly wins, I cannot draw with Ed. And if Karrion Kross wins, then I've completely lost when it comes to my predictions. Square Table Degenerates podcast also says if they are editing it and not letting us access the old unedited stuff, kind of upsetting to me, not going to lie. I'm almost 45 years old. I'm not trying to watch edited stuff. there are definitely some edits going on as to what is going to be appearing on Peacock. They are getting rid of a lot of old content, particularly anything that involves nudity, anything involved in
Racism.
that. Racism has been moved as well, or at least deleted. They're trying to get rid of anything that simply doesn't fly in today's market, essentially. And that's quite a lot of stuff. Pete Dunne's wearing white. That's baffling.
Interesting.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, while I understand the idea and I agree, I don't really want to, have the network to have it edited. At the same time, as I can see NBC's point of view with like, hey, we want all this content. We want to buy this. That being said, it needs to follow what we feel as a company is things that we can be okay putting on television. And if that means that we're not going to have DX doing blackface on the network, if it means we're not going to have Roddy Piper being incredibly insensitive at WrestleMania 6, I mean, it's understandable.
It is understandable. Corey has Karrion Kross. He's spelt it a little differently, but he has Karrion Kross for this match. Jada is saying this will be a Pete Dunne victory, so quite a spread there. Squared Table just says erasing history pretty much. The WWE does still own all of the original footage and have access to it, so they can release it pretty much however and whenever they want. We'll see if they do. I think, honestly, they'll behave on this one. Jada says editing some of those episodes will reduce them to 5 minutes. Yep, absolutely. And Bailey says standards and practices in 2021 wasn't what Vince did in 1987. 1987 was a long, long time ago, and Vince is a very different man now. Standards and Practices, of course, was the original name of a team that involved the introduction of Stacy Keibler in WCW as well. So Standards and Practices
Hancock
is rife indeed. Miss Hancock, who would just get up and dance on tables because reasons. It's a funny old world we live in. And then, of course, the answer to that was Right to Censor. So it's a funny old world we live in when it comes to wrestling. Who can tell? Who can tell?
I mean, I've watched back some of the things from the Attitude Era. I've watched back some of the things from the early mid-2000s, and I'm not comfortable with the idea of having, like, introducing my daughter to wrestling and have her watching, I don't remember what SummerSlam is. I want to say it was 2005, where they basically took one of the Diva Search contestant winners, shoved her in a shower, and sprayed her with water because WWE and it's going to get viewers. And like, those are kinds of things I'm kind of okay with. I don't need that history to be part of what I want. Like, I'm okay with making it so that it's not so problematic. I don't want to have problematic wrestling.
I'm okay with erasing history when that history is racist, basically, as long as we're still aware that they have done so. I wouldn't like it to be erased to a level whereby they can pretend it never happened. That's my my personal thoughts there.
You mean like name redacted?
Like name redacted, yeah. But that's the thing. You can still find everything that he's done. And I don't mean everything in that regard. It's still all
for now.
there.
For now.
You say for now a lot. It happened a while ago, and it's all still there. But there's a reason I say name redacted. Mostly because I find it funny personally. Thank you very much, Square Table Degenerates Podcast, for the subscription to YouTube as well. We do daily news videos here on the YouTube. They come from the Twitch channel as well. And I did earlier on today post a lot about the news that's coming out about Edge at the moment. For example, there are rumors that Edge might have a SummerSlam match. If you've heard that, you might have wanted to check the YouTube and the Twitch here, because we've been all over that one. Corey also says he is now only 3 followers away from 400. Well done, Corey. Very well done indeed. You keep it up, mate, and you'll be at 500 in no time. You keep going. Jacob says, is this the same Adam Cole entrance theme he used as soon as his Undisputed Era split up? Sounded a little better. I am not sure. I don't think we've either of us have actually been playing it loud enough.
Adam Cole has new entrance music. He has since the breakup of the Undisputed Era. Cameron Grimes tried to buy the Undisputed Era theme music, which was funny. But yeah, no. Kyle and Adam Cole both have new entrance music, as I call him, Cool Kyle with a K.
J-Dub says, does Scarlett wrestle? Does she? Did she? She did, and she does, and she can wrestle very well, but she is not in NXT, apparently, to wrestle. She is used entirely as a valet. Yes, she is known as Scarlett Bordeaux on the Indies. The Smoke Show, I believe, was a nickname that she went by.
I really enjoyed the Smoke Show character, because this is getting back to the Eva Marie thing, so it does have a current thing to it. But the Eva Marie, there's a place for the Scarlett Bordeaux and the Eva Maries.
Agreed.
There's a place for somebody who represents that Divas generation.
Yes.
Should we have a lot of them? No. Is Scarlett great because she doesn't do anything and she doesn't wrestle and she's just there to, as I've heard one person describe, put her sex magic out into the universe? Great, cool. But I mean, she's making minimal money. She doesn't cause a scene. Her outfits are more or less tasteful, depending on how much you like latex. And at the end of the day, she's not bothering anybody. Eva Marie is going to be a lot more problematic because
I would say so, yeah.
she's going to be in the ring. She's going to be more provocatively dressed than Scarlett. God, I hope she's improved. I'm an Eva Marie fan. I will come out and say that wholeheartedly. I have good feelings about what's going to happen. But if that woman hasn't improved in the ring and her intention is to be an in-ring competitor, then she's going to have a rough time.
I would like to see Scarlett in the ring and wrestling. There is a lot of people in NXT that she could certainly wrestle and wrestle well. I'm not sure why they're limiting her to valet, but if that's the system that they're comfortable with, by all means. I'm also quite excited for the fact that we've got Kyle O'Reilly and Karrion Kross just going at it in the middle of the ring right now. So that's also quite fun. But yeah, my concern was who's the prize. I look at what happened with the WWE and Mike Kanellis. They didn't want him. They never wanted him. They wanted Maria. They wanted Maria back. They got her, and they just had to push Mike Kanellis to do it. They didn't push him. Once that contract was signed, they just kept them both on the sidelines because Maria became unavailable.
I mean, they pushed him in 205 Live.
Anything involving 205 Live is not a push.
I mean, that match, if you've not seen his street fight with Drake Maverick from 205 Live,
I have.
It's worth going to take a look at because it's actually really good.
It's difficult for me to have ever been excited by 205 Live, especially if Buddy Murphy's not mentioned by name. But I see what you're saying. When you look at Karrion Kross, it looks like they've actually gone the other way. The Kross was the prize. But Scarlett Bordeaux can deliver a lot more than she's been delivering so far.
Scarlett Bordeaux is how they got him, by the way. I really, truly, honestly believe it.
Yeah.
Because they signed her months before he signed.
Yeah.
They didn't do anything with her, but they put her on the company. And she was in one thing when somebody got attacked outside the PC, during an episode of NXT. But yeah, no, she's definitely not what they went for when they wanted to get him. However, do you want to know how to instantly make Karrion Kross feel a whole lot less scary and a whole lot less cool?
How's that?
You learn his real first name.
That's a no. Don't be spoiling that for us. Also, I think your audio's gone a bit down for some reason. Not sure why. But your audio's just sort of kicked downwards. No idea as to the why.
The quality.
Volume.
Okay.
I'm going to catch up with a few of these. J-Dub says Adam's theme sounded different than the last pay-per-view. Could be is add some tweaks to it. And we have just gone live on Periscope as well on Twitter for the main event. WWE Fan Talk 1, you're right, mate, says, who have you guys got winning this match? I personally have Kyle O'Reilly. Ed has Karrion cross. Jada was also pointed out that your volume's gone down a little bit, Ed.
All right.
Let's
Hopefully this
see.
is better.
Hopefully so, mate. Hopefully so. I did notice it did that on Love Wrestling as well. Not sure as to the why, but sometimes things like that happen. I can easily turn mine up so I can hear you, but then we've got different volume for us.
I was going to say, it's why I have a new microphone coming in the next week or two.
You're going to be on stream a lot more, aren't you?
No, I just wanted to get a new microphone because I've been playing some Blood on the Clock Tower. And I'm having some issues with audio issues with playing that. So I decided I would grab a nice microphone, a cheap old microphone that has a condenser and stuff, and pray that will fix everything.
High quality microphones genuinely do make all the difference, is all I can say. This was one of the best investments I've ever made. What do you make of a match like this with so many little internal feuds that are undoubtedly going to have a lot of focus? You're going to see segments with Cole and O'Reilly. You're going to see segments maybe with Cole and Gargano. You've got Pete Dunne there, who's feuded with a number of people over the time. Looks like everyone really has been feuding with Adam Cole, but Karrion Kross undoubtedly will be picking fights as well. What do you think of a match like this, which still features a lot of little internal debates?
I love a match like this. I love a match that the worst thing that a triple threat match or more can have is people that feel like they're there just to be there. This is a great feud because all of these guys have an issue sort of kind of with each other. And you can see a lot of these feuds spilling out. Kyle O'Reilly and Adam Cole have a feud going on. Kyle O'Reilly and Pete Dunne have a feud. Johnny Gargano doesn't like anybody other than the people in the way. Pete Dunne and Johnny Gargano look like they're headed to a feud after this if neither one of them takes the title tonight. Karrion Kross just wants to be that big badass who's like, yeah, I'll take you, I'll take you, I'll take you, I'll take you. Get in the ring, I'll beat you all.
And that's usually a good selling point, I've got to say. For me, sitting to the side here as a more casual viewer, it feels like Johnny Gargano is a complete odd one out here. He doesn't, for me, feel like he belongs in a match like this.
They just went through the door.
They did just go through the door.
They're going inside the house.
J-Dub says the Turtle Island headset is spotty at best. I have the same headset, so if that's what you're going with, I'd imagine that's what J-Dub is referring to. And WWE Fan Talk says, big up Pete Dunne with the England-inspired ring gear tonight. He is indeed rocking the England colours. WWE Fan Talk, Dan, how you doing, mate? You can, by the way, follow me on Twitch. We are at twitch.tv/Tom Colohue. We do wrestling shows on Mondays and Fridays, including watch-alongs of Raw and SmackDown. And we do gaming shows on Tuesdays and Thursdays as well. I'm getting into the habit now of going onto Periscope for the main events, which essentially just means a link on Twitter. You click on it and I immediately come up. But we can always just put down at the bottom, as we've got the slider there, that you can easily join us on Twitch and get a hell of a lot more than just the main events. And Corey's saying he's enjoying the show as well. So far, this match has been delivering. They've taken Karrion Kross sort of out of the picture because he's basically gone home, as it were. He just got broken through the house, which I assume is always going to be something Johnny Gargano related. This time last year, Johnny Gargano, I believe, was feuding with Keith Lee over the North American Championship.
He was.
And he literally, the key to the door in your house set was some sort of integral moment for that one.
It was. And he also had a picture of Doc Hendricks on the wall.
Oh, he did, didn't he?
He did.
Oh, good times.
And his entrance involved him coming out of the door of the house.
Yes. So I'm a little bit disappointed we didn't have more of that, to be completely honest.
I am too. I'll be honest. I'm a little disappointed. But now that they've gone through the door, we can tell that it was the house was designed for something else. Speaking of people and being at home and being comfortable or whatnot, how do you think Adam Cole feels not having gold at the home and being the only one there who doesn't?
Not having
gold.
What, sorry?
Gold. Title. Britt Baker has the AEW Women's Championship.
Right, okay. I thought you meant in this match.
Oh, no. I meant at home.
Okay, proud. I would say very, very proud. He's been involved in her training after all. And of course, he's been rooting for her. From best I can tell, he'd just be very, very proud.
I know, but I would just love for like a character like Adam Cole. Like Austin, of course, would be very, very proud of her for all that she's accomplished. Adam Cole, on the other hand, I would
Oh,
imagine
he'd
be a
hate it.
little pissed off.
Oh, absolutely. There'd be fights over the dinner table. He'd be taking pictures for social media with her championship, pretending it's his. It'd be fantastic. I would absolutely love it. And Johnny Gargano has lost his headband.
Oh no.
Thank you very much for saying that you'll give the follow as well. We are quickly growing over on Twitch and we'll be doing shows pretty much constantly. So if you're interested when watching a Periscope, jump on over.
The other thing I love about this kind of a five-way match is that at least we're not going to get that there's two guys in the ring and we're going to dump people out. We just had the triple threat on NXT TV the other day, and it was a great triple threat where it was a lot of spots that were entwined with all three guys doing things, especially submissions. I feel like this five-way is going to be the same. Like, we're going to see a lot of two guys in spots, but we're going to see a lot of them where somebody's right there kind of in the picture, not so much that it's like just two guys for 3 minutes to do their segment and then one of them gets taken out and the next 3 minute segment comes in.
I completely agree with that. We see that way too often in triple threats where it's just like, okay, you tag out of the ring now for 10 minutes. Okay, you tag out for 10 minutes. Now, admittedly, there will be moments when someone like Karrion Kross clears house, as we're actively seeing as we speak right now.
Well, you are. The Peacock feed has decided that it doesn't want to work.
Great. Fantastic. Peacock always doing the job. Always everything you want when it comes to that. Lovely. I'm yet to hear of anyone who's happy about the Peacock deal.
No, nobody is.
I've just never encountered it.
All right, time to reload Peacock because it's now fully crashed.
Oh, that was brutal. Karrion Kross hit Johnny Gargano with what looked like a variant of the F5, but with just extra height. Hello, mate. DC95. I like it. I like it. Has made my way onto the Twitch. Thanks for the follow. Much appreciated. What's been your guys' match of the night? So far, to be honest, this one. It's just been very fast-paced, though the opening match with the six-man tag was also a lot of fun. Ed, you picked out that one.
I did.
Pardon me, for a potential match of the night at the beginning. Were you satisfied with it?
I was. I really enjoyed the six-man tag. I thought it was great. But again, I'm going to go back to the match that I had the most interest coming into. So it's going to be my match of the night, and it's probably going to be at the end of the night, LA Knight versus Cameron Grimes, because those two are gold together, and that title belt is absolutely stunning. And I got the prediction right, so it makes it a little bit better than the six-man.
I get what you're saying. Sometimes you can ruin it by just predicting the wrong person yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny Gargano is on a bit of a roll as well now. Lots of DDTs. It just seems like everyone's warming up for finishes at this point.
Yep, that's what a Fatal 5-Way typically is, though.
Yeah, it's just constant warm-up for finishes and not quite reaching it. I like that Adam Cole's arse just says baby. You might suggest that he's a butt baby. Oh, that was brutal. I always think back, whenever I see Adam Cole, he's had some fantastic matches on the main roster, but I always think back to the no DQ match of Aleister Black. Because the pain that they must have gone through to deliver that match.
The unnecessary amounts of pain.
I think that's definitely worth pointing out. They didn't need to do any of that. They didn't need to do any of it. I think that's part of being a wrestler, though. Knowing that you won't actually get over unless you do something massively unnecessary. Look at Mick Foley diving off the cell. That wasn't necessary, Mick. That wasn't necessary, but I don't think he'd have become a world champion if not for that moment. I genuinely don't. We now seem to be getting back to the point at which everyone's in the ring. I expect that this is going to be going on for a while yet, at least 20 more minutes. A lot of nice double team stuff happening now.
Indeed. Sorry, I was trying to figure something out on the Twitch side, and it's not letting me.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
You do whatever you need to do to get the feedback.
No, I have my feedback. There's
good.
If you look in the private chat on StreamYard,
Gotcha.
you'll see what I'm talking about.
Gotcha. Okay, will do.
I just know how we normally run things, so.
Yeah, that works fine for me.
Okay. I hope Corey will understand. I assume he will. So we have the 5 down, getting all back up, and Karrion Kross is like, okay, my turn.
Indeed, that seems to be where we're heading. Thank you very much, Corey, for the 15 bits. Very much appreciated. I have deleted your previous message because of how we generally discuss things. Hope you understand that this is just when we talk about certain services, we tend to keep them out of the chat here. DC95 says, these guys in the ring could sell ice to a polar bear. Love it.
They really could. They really
Why
could.
NXT is the most thrilling stuff to watch in WWE at the minute, in my opinion. DC, have you been watching Roman Reigns? Because that's probably the only section in which I would disagree. Basically, whenever Roman Reigns opens his mouth, I think that's the most compelling thing the WWE are doing. That said, this is certainly damn good. I don't think you could possibly go wrong with this much talent in the ring. I don't.
No, I mean, if these guys had a bad match, it would be more telling than the fact that they're going to have a 3.5, 4-star match because it's not the Tokyo Dome and Dave Meltzer, it's not AEW. So sorry,
Yeah.
I'm still bitter that a Dynamite tag match got 5 stars, and there are matches on NXT takeovers that don't. I'm just bitter.
I kind of get it though. I mean, we do on Mondays, we do the Cage Side Seats rumor look back. We just review the service that Cage Side Seats provides, which is a look back 6 months at all the rumors that they posted 6 months ago as to what was proven true, what was proven false. You look at the rumors coming out of AEW, and there are barely any. And you look at the rumors coming out of WWE, and they're very rarely true from certain outlets. Certain outlets, many times, have had very bad weeks as regards WWE rumors. And yet, when it comes to AEW stuff, they cover absolutely nothing, despite clearly having the contacts. There are questions, and there are questions that need asking. Bailey says NXT is number 2 behind SmackDown and much better than Raw. Vince doesn't see it that way, however. Yeah, for Vince, Raw is the number 1. It is the casual show, and he'll constantly be pushing it that way. And DC says Roman's been carrying the main rosters, in my opinion. Whenever there's a takeover, every match always delivers in a way in which the main rosters would, and that's completely fair. This takeover has been entertaining start to finish, whereas I feel SmackDown started being entertaining when Roman was more involved and stopped being entertaining when he wasn't.
And another thing I want to put out, because DC makes a very, very good point here, but it needs to be said. NXT is a third brand, and I will wholeheartedly admit that it's the third brand in terms of, what's going on with the programming and whatnot. That being said, NXT is still completely driven to the market of you're a wrestling fan. You already want to see this. You're not coming to this as a casual fan. Because honestly, I don't think Triple H caters to the casual fan.
He doesn't.
Because Vince has told him, you don't have to. You want to go do your project with your little guys and do your little shows, fine. Go do your little shows if it keeps you occupied and happy. Because I honestly think that's exactly how Vince feels about NXT. Is it's going to keep Triple H happy, and he's my son-in-law, so sure, go have fun.
It is a fact that Vince is probably best described as dismissive of NXT. He doesn't focus on it. He doesn't really care much about it. There's a reason that when you watch NXT UK TakeOver, you hear people chanting, "Are you watching Vince McMahon?" He's not. That said, Triple H, I feel this is the only way he knows how to do it. I don't think Triple H can book for the casual audience. I don't think that's something he's actually personally capable of doing. This is one of the reasons that I don't think he's ever going to be taking over on the main roster or taking over WWE at large, because in WWE, you have to cater for the casual. You have to aim at the casual. WWE main roster is all about the casual. I don't think Triple H can do it. With NXT moving to the USA network, it had to start appealing to the casual audience, but it hasn't. There's been no real change. So we are where we are in that point, but at the same time, I just don't think Triple H can actually do it.
I wholeheartedly agree. I, however, need a minute. I will be right back.
No worries. So you are left momentarily with just me and my face to keep you entertained for this main event. Not that you need it, because it's NXT. Here's the thing. When it comes to Raw, when it comes to SmackDown, particularly Raw, these watch parties are incredibly entertaining because we'll just we'll take the piss. We'll have fun. We'll just enjoy being a little bit ridiculous about everything going on. It's not really a problem with NXT. I could literally sit here silently and it'll be a hell of a party. We're just watching with friends. We're just having a great time. NXT delivers in the same way. Sometimes on SmackDown, for example, I struggle with the watch parties to talk over Roman because Roman's very good. But on Raw, I could talk over the whole damn thing and it only improves the show, according to many people who do drop in here. Bailey says, when Vince isn't there anymore, who can book for the casual audience? Bruce Pritchard, John Laurinaitis, Paul Heyman could if they actually gave him the chance to do so. There aren't many, and I think this is one of the reasons Nick Khan is as powerful now as he has been, as well as he is, I should say. And Corey says, I'm enjoying the match. And J-Dub says, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but can't wait to see what it is you're about to say, mate. Can't wait to see what it is you're about to say. Here we go. I think you're selling Vince short. Has to see the value in NXT or he wouldn't commit money to it. He'd be a fool if he didn't understand that his top talent have come from NXT FCW. What I mean by dismissive is simply that he trusts Triple H to get on with it. Like he just basically says to Triple H, get on with it, and he doesn't feel the need to be involved with it himself. That's what I mean by dismissive. Not that he doesn't care per se, not that he has no interest in it. He simply trusts Triple H to do it. And ultimately, if Vince watched all of the programming he creates, the man would never sleep. He would never sleep. So I think he has to be at least a little dismissive. He has to trust Triple H and he has to leave Triple H to just get it done. It's part of the job. DC saying you'll have to get me on a watch party in future, Tom, when I've got a mic and camera sorted out. Would be a good laugh. We could potentially reunite the family, mate. We could definitely do something like that. I'm certainly looking to expand the crowd here at some point, so maybe we could do something depending on if the viewers want it, of course. Jacob says, thanks for clarifying. Thought you meant dismissive and that you just didn't care about NXT at all. No, I think it was a fair question, Jacob, absolutely. The way I see it, I call it dismissive because he doesn't put attention and focus onto it. He trusts Triple H to just get it done and get on with it. And by and large, he doesn't give it any attention. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that because the way Vince generally works, when he's focusing on things, it means they need fixing. There's a reason he's focused on Raw right now and barely even turns up to SmackDown. Because SmackDown don't need fixing, but Raw does. Carrying Cross with a double dangerous suplex there. Action has come thick and fast this whole time. Lots of double teams, lots of traded blows. At the moment, we're down to Karrion Kross and Pete Dunne in the ring. I would be disappointed if Pete Dunne is there to take the pin. At the same time, I think taking the pin in this match is not a bad thing. No one would be ashamed or disappointed at taking the pin here when you consider that they've all had moments to shine. I don't think Pete Dunne has had as many moments to shine as other people, though. Certainly, if he's in the ring with Karrion Kross, that's the moment for it. Jacob says, okay, let me throw a hypothetical at you. By all means. Triple H leaves the company for whatever reason. Does Vince keep NXT going with someone else or just shut it down? He clearly wouldn't have the time to devote to it himself. I think he would replace Triple H. He would try and replace him with Shawn Michaels. If that didn't work out, he would then try and replace him with William Regal. And if that didn't work out, then there are just a number of other people that he could potentially bring into it. I'm going to bring Ed back in, and I'm going to leave this this particular question up because I think this is something that, Ed, you can jump straight in on. If Triple H leaves the company for whatever reason, do you think Vince would keep it going with someone else, or do you think he'd shut it down and move directly towards focus on casual audience?
I think Triple H, if Triple H left NXT, I think it would honestly, something would happen. Somebody would take over. Maybe Shawn Michaels, maybe William Regal, maybe Matt Bloom, Adam Pearce, somebody like that. Vince himself probably wouldn't run it. I don't think he wants to run a third show designed to embrace the casuals and embrace the fan base that NXT reaches. Vince knows that any NXT reaches a specific fan base, and Vince is happy. As much as we all think Vince is this aloof guy who only cares about money and only wants to have the types of wrestling that we see on Mondays and Friday nights as the type of wrestling it is. You got to remember, Vince McMahon is a man of the territories. Yeah. His father grew up running a territory. His father grew up running wrestling in the 80s, running wrestling in the 90s. NXT is a great mix of the territory system on a larger scale. And I think that Vince McMahon appreciates what's being done in NXT, but he knows that it will not make him the money he wants. It's the key difference between what WWE and Vince McMahon do and what AEW does. Because I think Vince McMahon has no limit to the number of fans who could watch his show. Oh, wow.
Karrion Kross has won the match, taking down Kyle O'Reilly, who was simply too focused on Adam Cole to really pay attention to what was going on behind him. That is a clever finish, a very smart finish that doesn't necessarily point to a new feud for Karrion Kross, but very much points towards a continued feud between Kyle O'Reilly and Adam Cole. I cannot at this point sit here and say that I have any idea who Karrion Kross's next opponent is going to be. I think it's very possible that he comes up to the main roster and makes at least some appearances while still holding the gold.
Very possible. It's very possible. To finish my statement, I don't think there's a limit on the number of fans that WWE can have with the main roster. Because if you bring in the casuals, that number can go from anywhere between the sad 1.4s and the 1.6s all the way up to the old days of 4.8, 5.9. Those millions of fans who used to watch in the Attitude Era. That's all possible if you continue booking as a casual wrestling type of booking system. I don't think there's a way in the world AEW trying to run as an alternative, trying to run the style that NXT runs, trying to run the indie style, that anybody is going to be able to go ahead and run that same system and get 1.6, 1.8, 2 million viewers on a constant week in and week out basis. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. Do I want AEW to fail? Am I saying they're going to fail? No, because TNT is going to be happy if they can get 1.3 on a weekly basis. Why? Because 1.3 with a 0.3 in a demo is going to make TNT lots and lots of money.
Absolutely correct. Bailey has said, if there was no NXT, where would Vince get his talent from? The same place he got his talent from before NXT, indie shows, FSW, basically whatever he dreamt up and let someone else run. DC says, no title change. Would have loved a little change, loved a title change in this match. I'm surprised by the lack of title change, to be completely honest. But I think Karrion Kross was the overwhelming favorite coming into it. Also says, should have let Pete Dunne win and then play his coming home into the arena. Not the time, mate, because I know we picked up the win earlier today, but it was just a 1-0, and I'm not particularly enamored of the
Also,
team
let's
that we're
remember, we
using.
talk about title changes for NXT here. Sorry to jump on you a little bit there, Tom. I thought you were done. I apologize. All of these champions are really brand new. Bronson Reed just won his title within the past month or so. MSK is probably the longest reigning champions I think that we have. Either them or Raquel Gonzalez, because they won it roughly around the same time, I think. And then Karrion Kross just beat Finn Balor at the last takeover. There's no real reason to swap any of these titles unless you were going to hot potato one of them, or you really were going to make a move with Karrion Kross.
The idea very much seems to be that they have just started after all. There definitely looks to be some sort of storyline going on afterwards. Now,
Yeah,
I'm just
they're
going to
lingering on shots for a long time here, but
click on that from J-Dub. Just going to click on it. I do not know what William Regal is saying here.
It's
Now, I did mention at the beginning of this stream, which admittedly was almost 3 hours ago, that Samoa Joe is not there.
okay. So I'm just going to give you a little bit here.
Go for it.
The William Regal moment there was William Regal saying, "I've been here for 7 years. I've never seen so much bedlam, and I think it's time for a change."
Interesting. Well,
Those
maybe
are the
that's where
words of
Samoa Joe is going to end up.
So
The
could we be seeing Samoa Joe as a
GM.
possible authority figure? Again, I don't see them bringing him back unless he's getting in the ring, right?
I'm going to reiterate the reasons that he was released, as it were. There was no intention to release Samoa Joe in the batch of releases that he left with. However, he expressed an interest in being released rather than stay on commentary, because he simply wasn't interested in staying on commentary and staying in a company that wasn't going to let him wrestle. The main reason they weren't letting him wrestle was because the medical team would not clear him from repeated concussions. He was told Alexa Bliss was cleared, so just wait. Eventually we'll clear you. However, the moment, it didn't come. It just did not come. So what happened instead was he has to be released. Now, if he has been back, it's very, very possible that what's actually happened is he's gone to the performance center to pick up gear. It's very possible that's the case. It's also very possible that NXT doctors will clear him where main roster doctors will not. They have contracts with different medical teams, different medical staff, even though there is still one WWE doctor who oversees everything and would probably still say no. Do I believe that Samoa Joe will come back as an authority figure if he can't wrestle? No, I don't. However, if there were clear promises made that he was cleared and that there were plans to have him wrestle, then I think we'll see him. With this in mind, I still do not believe that Samoa Joe will be wrestling in WWE next. I believe we will see him in AEW, New Japan, Impact, wherever, before we see him working in NXT or WWE. That is my personal opinion on that, based on the information that we do have access to. I can't sit here and say I have all the answers. I don't. But I do have the facts that I've just presented, and they make it very clear from where I'm sitting that unless Samoa Joe wrestles, we are not going to see him in the WWE. You are muted, Ed.
Sorry, I was saying that's completely understandable, and if that's what he wants to do, it makes more than perfect sense. I couldn't see him being released because he makes a higher paycheck than they're willing to, with the idea that he may eventually, potentially, possibly be brought back with the concussion problems and then come back for less money to take a non-wrestling role, with the caveat that he still might not ever get it. Now, granted, like you said, we could be wrong. We're working with information. and people's opinions on what their situation is and what things they're willing and not willing to do can change in the drop of a hat.
Very true.
But Samoa Joe, like you said, seems like he wants to wrestle. And there are plenty of promotions around the world that are going to clear him to wrestle.
There absolutely are. Based on the concussion rulings that they have, the WWE's concussion rulings are the most extreme of all promotions currently available. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that's a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think if there are any concerns about him working with concussions, that they shouldn't let him wrestle. However, he will likely go to a different promotion and have absolutely no problems. That's where I'm sitting on that one, and that's my opinion on it. Samoa Joe, if he is offered a new contract, it will be for less money. That I can state as a fact, because everyone is being offered less money. That said, Samoa Joe was not released because of the money that he makes. He was not released in that batch. Only the most recent batch of cost cutting had the same cost benefit analysis done by the chief financial officer, whereas previously it was creative and Vince McMahon who were most involved in deciding who to let go. Essentially, when it came to Billy Kay, Peyton Royce, Mickie James, Samoa Joe, they had no plans for them. Whereas with this particular batch, because it was financially based, they had plans for Braun Strowman. They had plans for Aleister Black. They had plans for Ruby Riott. They had plans for everyone, even kind of Santana Garrett, even though they kept having plans and never actually did anything with them. They never got around to actually using them. DC, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for following. We look forward to seeing you in future as well. And that's something I very much look forward to, saying I'm off to get some well-needed sleep. Good watching you both tonight. We'll see you soon, mate. My plan here, essentially, is to wait until Love Wrestling comes on and send them a raid. The reason that we are going to do that is because yesterday, Ed Fries jumped into the show alongside Love Wrestling and told them that we would be coming straight through to the Love Wrestling show afterwards. So that is exactly what we're going to do.
I told them that if they were on for a reaction show, that
I believe they will be
still here. Although no, they're planning a reaction show. I heard the War Report guys and some special guests are planned to have a reaction show. But sometimes those shows can take 10 to 15 minutes to get started. And sometimes with your sleeping desires, because it is 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, the desire for sleep is always overwhelming, and not wanting to wait 20 minutes is completely understandable.
So I'm keeping my eye on Twitch to see when they pop in. And when that happens, we'll happily send people over there. For now, we still have a couple of questions to go over. Conrad has rejoined us and says, Regal breaking my heart. I think I didn't hear what he was saying, but I could see the emotion in his face. So again, I am happy.
I can repeat it again. It was...
No, I know. I just mean like in the moment, I didn't get the full effect.
Oh, okay.
But I could still see the emotion on his face. And of course, William Regal's someone I've met and interviewed briefly. It's very confusing when you meet William Regal because he shakes your hand and says, I'm Darren. Sorry, what? No, you're not. No, you are not. And it's a very confusing moment. But William Regal is one of the most able and capable speakers I've ever met. He sat down for an interview with a number of journalists. And he was supposed to be sat there for 20 minutes. And I think he sat there for 55 in total. Because he started telling stories and just kept going. And that was only the one of everyone. Then he had an interview with BT Sport. Then he had individual interviews with a number of people. He eventually gave us, between everyone there, about 2 hours. A very passionate and emotional speaker. Doesn't surprise me at all that he would deliver so good a promo as people seem to be reacting to. Corey says if Samoa Joe goes to AEW, he'll attack Kenny Omega at his debut and destroy Kenny Omega at Resolution. Well, then has he gone to AEW or has he gone to Impact? Many ways that could go. If Samoa Joe went to AEW, I think Forbidden Door would be everything Samoa Joe. And I think, ideally, he wouldn't go straight to Kenny. He would instead be going after Jon Moxley.
Samoa Joe versus Tony Khan, the Forbidden Door?
You want Tony Khan?
Well, Tony Khan is the Forbidden Door. We've heard this.
Oh, he is personally the Forbidden Door.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. You haven't heard these. Yes, he calls himself on Impact. He calls himself the Forbidden Door. He
Oh, my
is the
word.
Forbidden Door because he's the one making all these arrangements. He's the one bringing all these companies together. The reason why New Japan is working with Impact again is because of him bringing in New Japan talent to work with him.
I mean, that's moderately true, but if it were actually the case, New Japan would basically shrug him off and say, nah, it's not happening, mate. Funny old world. Hey, it's possible, Bailey. We are wrapping up at this point, so we'll have a think about that. And Ed, you say you have a microphone coming?
I do have an actual microphone coming soon.
So we'll see if that can solve the problem for future shows, because I'm sure Ed will be back for future takeovers. In the meantime, unfortunately, one of the reasons that I tend to go pretty quickly once a show has ended is because once a show has ended, the viewership drops pretty significantly. So we're now at a point where really a raid doesn't quite work in the same way. So I'm actually going to call it there and say a big thank you to everyone who has joined us, and a good night. Ed, if you'd like to stay in the video for like an extra minute or so, we'll just have a quick wind down. But in the meantime, we will be back tomorrow for a watch party for WWE Raw. That will just be myself. And we will also, of course, be doing spoiler warning, giving you all the latest wrestling news and the best that we can deliver in that particular field. In the meantime, big thank you to Ed for keeping me company and for providing his analysis tonight. A big thank you to everyone who has joined us. I've been Tom Colohue. Please do remember to click like if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe if you're on YouTube, and follow on Twitch as well. And I will see you all next time.